Well, we are back, and been kind of putting this one off for a little while because it came out around Easter weekend, so we couldn't see it that weekend.
Yeah.
And we had a ton of stuff going on, but we finally got a chance to go see Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Although the X in the title is silent, the director confirmed that.
Yep.
And what were we gonna say?
I was about to say, I think it's meant to be more kind of like A, B teaming up for an event, basically.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. And then, I mean, the New Empire, people have been trying to figure out what that meant, because there's really no New Empire in this movie.
You can kind of say more of like a rise of an old empire, which, you know, an empire that's re-risen, you could say. If you want to go in depth of the movie right away with, you know, the antagonist of the film, Scar King, kind of like reforging it.
Yeah, that could be the case. But I think before we go in depth, we should mention at least the previous movies that have occurred. How many of them have you seen? Because I know we saw King of the Monsters, Skull Island, and Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah, I believe, what was it? I think those were, because I know it's Godzilla 2014. King of the Monsters, Godzilla.
Yes.
Because I saw the King of the Monsters, Godzilla. Then I saw Skull Island, and then
Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yep, which led up to
this new one.
Yep.
I've actually been a fan of these new movies.
They are getting a little bit more and more, you could say, over the top. Also, I like to say a little bit more of like that cartoon and also anime-ish in terms of the monsters themselves versus the humans were acting kind of like the humans in any other monster film ever.
Yeah, and basically the thing is with this new series is it actually kind of reflects what happened with Godzilla when Godzilla started out initially in Japan. Yeah. When Godzilla started, it was a very serious, slow-burning, dark movie about and Godzilla, was a physical representation of nuclear destruction.
Yep.
And then as the series went along, it became more sillier, more cartoonish.
Yep.
And there's been attempts over the years to get Godzilla back to his roots, go more serious, which they've done.
Yep.
But the franchise never forgot to have fun, which is what these new films are doing to a point.
Yeah, which is like, again, kind of like this whole monster, since they're kind of like the main stars of the show, they get a little bit more of their silliness and fun, basically, through their interactions with each other, basically.
Yeah, because there were monster interactions in the original films, and they're doing that here too.
Yeah.
And with the CG, they've at least managed to get them to emote, so that's nice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A lot of like facial reactions, emotes, whatever the case may be, all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, and actually I was going to talk about the history of the MonsterVerse a little bit before we go into this movie. So I remember when the 2014 Godzilla was announced, it was the second attempt to Americanize Godzilla.
Yep.
Because as we all know, Roland Emmerich tried in 1998, but it failed.
Yep.
And it took them years to try again, because after 1998, Toho was very resistant about America making their own Godzilla stuff.
Yep.
And eventually, when they made the 2014, we were told numerous times it's going to be just like the originals. It's going to be faithful, which it was.
Yep.
And I did recently rewatch the 2014 Godzilla reboot, and I think it's competently well made. Mm-hmm. The only frustrating thing, two frustrating things about it. There are instances where I felt there could have been more monster action, and the human characters are very one note.
Yeah. Which I think in the 2014 one, if I believe, there was a lot more humans, even though humans were in the MonsterVerse, are the weakest point, where Godzilla had a less screen time than the humans, basically, in the 2014 one.
Yeah, and actually, if you do watch the original Godzilla, Godzilla has very little screen time in the original film.
Yeah.
It's more of the humans and, the impact of a kaiju attack.
Yeah.
And all that metaphors for Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the original film.
Yeah.
That's not the case in the 2014 film, because he has to fight another kaiju.
Yep.
But what I was trying to get at here was, there are a couple instances in the 2014 reboot where we could have seen a fight scene in Honolulu, which we see on a TV screen. Mm-hmm. There could have been a Las Vegas destruction scene from the other kaiju.
Oh, yeah.
And there could have been more action,
Yeah.
but they wanted a more restrained approach because they're trying to reintroduce Godzilla to a new generation,
Yep.
but also sticking to his roots.
Yep.
And that is something that a lot of people did complain about. They wanted more monster action, more of Godzilla's screen time,
Yep.
which we did get in the later films.
Mm-hmm.
Another complaint people had about the human characters in that was Bryan Cranston should have been the main character of that instead of killing him off.
Oh yeah.
Because, Bryan Cranston is somebody everybody generally likes. I mean, 5 seasons of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And he could have been a regular character in these movies, but they're like, nope, we kill him off.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think with the human characters, they were trying to do something realistic with them,
Yeah.
which is why we can't latch onto them very well. They feel more like real people in the real world.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that movie did reintroduce Godzilla to a new generation.
Yep.
And then after that, it was Kong Skull Island, which reintroduced Kong to a new generation.
Wouldn't be Godzilla King of the Monsters before Skull Island?
King of the Monsters was the 3rd film in this series.
Okay.
But Kong Skull Island was the next movie, and that one is actually some good fun.
All right.
You get plenty of monster action.
Yep.
I would say the human characters, there's a little more interest to them in Kong Skull Island.
Yep.
They still kind of fit one note or an archetype, but for the most part, they at least had some kind of interest to them.
All right.
But it was a good, fun movie from what I remember.
All right.
And then King of the Monsters, which was the 3rd film in this
Yeah.
franchise. I remember when that came out, people were saying negative things about that one.
I didn't see anything wrong with that one with the King of the Monster because I know, well, again, the humans were also weak in this one, but it was mainly Godzilla versus Ghidorah, King Ghidorah.
It was. I think what people were complaining about with King of the Monsters was that the human characters were not very interesting, and the film was so frenzied and chaotic.
Yeah.
Like, there were fight scenes that were set in rain and snow, and it was so chaotic, and there was a lot of flashing lights on screen. It was basically a disaster film of sorts. And by disaster film, I mean there was a lot of destruction going on.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, for sure. I know Rodan with the volcanic region, but then Ghidorah kind of didn't he beat Rodan at the flame?
He beat Rodan, but they actually had a short, brief scene of a fight.
Yeah.
Which that would have been awesome if we had a full fight, but he defeats him quickly.
Yep.
And people didn't like King of the Monsters that much, but there were people that did like it. I mean, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it is serviceable enough for a kaiju movie.
Yeah.
Even if the human characters are weak.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of flashing light moment came from the ending when Ghidorah and Godzilla fought with lightning and atomic energy beam just ravaging around basically.
Oh yeah, and there was actually one person that said if you have or you're sensitive to photoepilepsy or you have seizure attacks, don't watch King of the Monsters. The flashing lights could trigger that.
Yeah.
Not in the way that Pokemon did with that one band episode, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And then of course you had Godzilla versus Kong, which a lot of people did enjoy, and I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yep. Because it was basically what everyone was kind of like hope was happening again for quite some time, which was Godzilla versus Kong. Two kings basically. 2
alpha titans taking on each other, and the Godzilla versus Kong is actually significant to me for a couple of reasons, actually.
First being?
I remember when they first announced it back in 2015, and I was actually really excited because it was basically like a remake of the old King Kong versus Godzilla, with modern special effects.
Yep.
And I was so excited about that because it's like you have so much potential for destruction, you have so much potential for these big epic fights.
Yeah.
And the film did deliver on that very well.
Yeah.
The second reason is that was actually the first film I saw back in the cinemas.
Oh.
The very first one, because we were still going through the pandemic at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when we went to see it, I was still wearing my mask. But I was vaccinated, so it's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that was like the first big thing I saw back in the cinema. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, the human characters are still very one-note in that. But I think the point of Godzilla vs. Kong, and even the filmmakers admitted it, you're not here to see anything in depth. You're not here for anything deep. You're here for a giant monster fight, and that's what we're going to give to you.
Yep, which was basically 3 rounds before a bonus round between the main basic antagonist of the film.
Yeah, which was Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
Actually, there were actually some comparisons I made with Batman v Superman when Godzilla vs. Kong came out.
Oh, yeah?
You got the two characters fighting, and then they have to team up later to take on the real threat.
Yeah.
Only in Batman and Superman's case, it was Doomsday. With Godzilla and Kong, it was Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, although I would say in the Batman v Superman, they had a third, basically, ally popped in out of nowhere, while in Godzilla Kong, there was no third ally. It was just those two.
Yeah, it was just those two, but they did add the third ally in this one, and then eventually a fourth one came on board.
Oh, yeah, and this new one, which we'll get into once we cover up all the other stuff.
Yeah, but with the new franchise that's been coming out, I think it's like these movies, they're meant to be fun.
Yeah.
They're not perfect. They do have problems, notably the human characters. And usually with people who have seen this new Godzilla movie, Godzilla Kong film, initial word was very mixed.
Yeah, I think it was once again talking about the humans aspect of it a little bit.
That, and people are like, well, it's mostly just monster carnage and very lightly written characters.
Yeah.
But something I did notice was a lot of the critics were comparing this to Godzilla -1.
Oh, yeah, because that did, -1 did win an award.
Best visual effects. But it also set the bar pretty high for a resurgence of Godzilla from Japan.
Yeah.
Because people were saying it was the best Godzilla movie ever. And I can see where they're coming from.
Yep.
But comparing -1 to this movie, I think that's not really a comparison that should be made.
On one hand, no, because Godzilla -1 is supposed to be kind of like another take on the original Godzilla.
That is true.
But on the other hand, though, I can sort of see, because this is like you're comparing two Godzillas, though, because one is, both of them are Godzilla, but yeah, one is Godzilla that's supposed to be more of the atomic,
Yeah, it's going back to his nuclear roots.
Yeah.
With -1.
Yep.
And then this new one is more action-orientated monster carnage, which is something that a lot of the later Godzilla films from Japan did.
Yeah.
So it's like, I just have to wonder how many of these critics actually have seen the ones from Japan. Because they should know, yes, Godzilla started out serious, but as it goes on, they start going into more monster action and silliness.
Yeah, or at least in that whole monster verse, basically, because it's like, well, what other monsters could we kind of like go into, basically? Which also, in this one, got into more of that idea of, well, what other monsters we could play around with, technically, or titans, or, like mythological, myths, type of creatures that we can get into.
Yeah, because they establish in King of the Monsters that there are 17 and counting. We see a little bit of them, but we don't see all of them.
Yeah.
And I remember, actually, you were asking me if anyone from the Monarch TV show showed up in this.
Yeah, because we saw a couple of like Monarch stations, basically, in this film. So it's like, I'm wondering, just because they're kind of like coincide with each other, basically, in terms of the Monsterverse, that would there be anybody from the TV show in this movie? Just because I believe the TV show also resides in the Monsterverse.
It does, but I have not seen the TV show, so I cannot confirm who came from that.
I have not seen it either, but I just kind of, it just popped in my head because I know, well, they use a lot of the Monarch stuff, and that's kind of like the title of the show, or part of the title of the show. So it's like, I wonder if there was any.
I don't think there was, because I've never really seen the show, but I do know Kurt Russell is in the TV show.
Yeah.
He was not in this.
Yeah.
But I don't know personally, because I've never seen the show, and I don't have an Apple TV subscription.
Yeah.
So there's that.
All right.
But anyway, with this new movie, The New Empire, thoughts on it?
Well, kind of like I mentioned, it's kind of got into the whole, that anime cartoon, more of like in terms of the monsters themselves, where it's all about the fighting, the interactions, a little bit of the funniness, comedy. But overall, they're the stars of the movie. It got to the point where all the directors and stuff like that are like, all right, we know why you're here. You're here for the monsters. They're the star. They'll have all they'll have the emotes. They'll have their funny moments, their actions, their seriousness, and all that sort of stuff. Very similar to like an anime or like a cartoon type of show or Western, like kind of like, or like, like Dragon Ball Z or stuff like that, where it's just like, alright, they're going to get their power-ups, and then they're going to eventually fight.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. For me, it's like I knew what I was getting into with this.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't expecting anything deep. I wasn't expecting anything like, meaningful. It was going to be monster action. It's going to be a lot of fighting, a lot of visual spectacle, and they delivered on that.
Yeah, not to say that Dragon Ball, because I know they can get in deep as well a little bit, but a lot of time for Dragon Ball, you're eventually getting hyped up for the fight eventually, whatever that be, Goku, Vegeta, or Goku, Frieza, or the team up against another bigger threat and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what's happening, and it's actually interesting. You mentioned that there's an anime influence with this because I remember when we saw Godzilla versus Kong, there were moments that were very anime inspired.
Yeah.
And I saw that in the cinematography in specific moments. The same thing applies to here.
Yeah.
Only in this case, this movie sort of reflects the fun silliness action that came with the Showa era of Godzilla.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, this series is pretty much going in the route that the original Godzilla series did.
Yeah.
Eventually someone's going to be like, well, we can have our action and silliness, but we got to sort of go back to the seriousness a little bit to make it a little interesting so we're not making the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I know, but they're kind of going back in that similar pathway again, though, where it's going to get a lot more of that, silly comedy, but they'll try to get a little bit more seriousness this time around with this.
Yeah.
As you can probably see for a few incessant moments where it's like, oh crap, we gotta get going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Colin will be like, alright, I need some help. Alright, time to get going. Godzilla!
Oh yeah. We were actually adding in dialogue with the monsters during many of the scenes. Which is actually something we did with Godzilla versus Kong.
A little bit, yeah.
Like I remember when we saw Godzilla versus Kong, one thing I said when they were fighting was, "Stay down! If I wanted it, you'd be dead already."
Yes.
Like I was throwing in a ton of Batman v Superman quotes.
Yeah.
And I remember the meme where Kong's like, "You're letting him kill Mothra."
Yeah.
And then Godzilla's like, "What does that mean? Why did you say that name?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Why did you say that name? It's his queen's name. It's his queen's name."
Yes.
I mean, everybody was making that comparison. And,
Yeah.
Gotta cash in when you can.
Which is kind of funny because later on, because Godzilla's just like, he beats up, Kong beats up Godzilla. Kong's like, alright, we got a bigger threat down in all Earth. I'm dragging you with me. I didn't want to do this, but I'm dragging you with me.
Yeah. But anyway, we can start going into spoilers now. I mean, I knew what I was getting into, and I was not disappointed.
Mm.
I think that just helped because, I accepted this for what it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this picks up immediately from where Godzilla vs. Kong left off, when we established that Kong now lives inside the Hollow Earth.
Yep, but he's kind of feeling a little bit more of the loneliness because the thought was, well, he's the last of his kind.
They had established in Kong's Skull Island that he was the last of his kind.
Yeah.
But he was still growing at the time.
Yeah.
And now, he's set up a new home in the Hollow Earth because the storm around Skull Island basically has made that island uninhabitable. And it's basically just, the constant storm. It's just not a good place to thrive anymore. And so now he's inside the Hollow Earth.
Yep.
And the first shot we see, he's running across the grassland and he's being chased by these
pack of wolves, basically.
Yeah, these oversized, weird-looking wolf coyote things.
Yeah.
And there was this really cool shot where we see the whole pack running through the plains, and he's running away from them. It was so wide, you got to see all the background.
Yep. And eventually it got to a canyon where it's or the cliffside where it's all right, nowhere to go. But the traps were kind of in place a little bit, it looked like, and then it got to the point where there's 3 wolves left, but Godzilla got the 4th one, and then
no, Kong gets the 4th one.
Oh, yeah, not Godzilla. Yeah, Kong gets the 4th one, rips him apart.
Yeah, rips him, and then gets drenched in green blood.
Yeah, then he starts, roaring, intimidation effect, which worked. Then as soon as they leave, Kong goes, God dang it, now I'm all drenched.
Yeah, and then he goes to wash off in a waterfall.
Yeah, and then he's like, all right, time to eat. And it's like, ow! And it's like, tooth.
Yeah, it turns out he's got an infected tooth.
Yep, and then another monster just came out of nowhere, and...
Oh, the little lizard thing?
Yep, and he was fighting it, but then all of a sudden he hears something, and he's like, huh? And it's... he hears a roar, and then of course he's like, alright, you can keep it. He investigates the roar, only to find out that a little frog...
Yeah, it was a little frog thing.
like a frog chameleon that was, imitating
It was like imitating the roar, yeah, because, in real life, there are actual animals that can imitate the sounds of others.
Yeah, which then Kong's like, oh, I guess I am the last one then. I thought I could find someone else.
Yeah, because I remember in Godzilla vs. Kong, they tell him, one of the main humans that can communicate with him, Gia, I think her name is.
Yep.
Anyway, she basically tells him there may be more of your kind down there.
Yep.
Of course, he doesn't find more of his kind in that film, but in this case, he's searching for more of them.
Yep.
Because he has that kind of hope that maybe there's a few survivors.
Yeah, that's the hope. Which, speaking of the girl, we get to the next part, which is basically her struggling in school a little bit.
Yeah, because she doesn't really fit in with the world that much.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because she comes from a different, way of life. Trying to adjust to how we live, it's just not going to be that easy.
No, it's going to be very difficult. Especially when she's like, in her head, she can sense and feel the surroundings of the earth, basically, as well.
Yeah, and she has, that sort of connection with Kong, which I don't know if it wasn't psychic. I don't know if it was telepathic, but it's like it's like the bond they share with each other. She can feel his heartbeats, know what he's feeling, and can communicate with him very well.
Yeah, and also communicate again with sort of like the planet basically, to where she starts seeing visions or like a communication, which we later find out eventually at some point it was like an SOS basically signal.
Yeah, and so basically she's drawing all these symbols on her desk.
Which matches the seismic scribblings too, that, the doctor or the...
Yeah, all the monarch scientists had been monitoring.
Yep, which matches that. So then the director, she goes to the conspiracy theorist guy, which we saw in...
Well, back up a bit. Actually, when Gia is drawing the symbols on her test sheet.
Yeah.
I recognize what that sheet was. It was a Scantron sheet.
Oh yeah, because they were doing a test too. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember taking tests on a Scantron?
Yep, I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine if they had put the Scantron in the machine and the machine just fried because it couldn't handle all that.
Yeah, no, because I remember all the teachers always said this about when using a Scantron sheet. Number 2 pencil, and make sure you whatever answer you circle it in really well, or you fill it in really well, so that way it can register what you answer.
Yeah, because they had specific ways of you got to fill it out this way, otherwise the machine's not going to count it.
Yeah.
Or it'll mark it as incorrect.
Yeah.
But with all the scribbling she did on it, it's the machine probably couldn't handle something like that.
No, it could not, because then it would have been either saying, well, she answered all the question, or she answered only 1 or 2. It's like...
Or the machine's can't read, cannot compute.
Something like that, yeah.
Definitely. Anyway, back to the conspiracy theorist. His name was... What was his name again? It was...
Well, I think just because of how the characters are light, or the human character...
I know what it was. It was Bernie.
Bernie? I was about to say, we can just call it by their sort of nickname, per se, just because the human characters are light in the film.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's why it's like, director, conspiracy theorist guy. We'll eventually get to the Ace Ventura guy, which is also the doctor/dentist of Kong, basically.
Yeah, that's the thing with these human characters. I feel like these characters are lighter than the other characters of the other films.
Yeah.
I mean, they were light in the other movies, but at least some of the other characters had a little something to them, even if it was just one personality trait or a respective archetype. But here, I mean, the human characters in this are just here to give us exposition or move the plot forward just a little.
Move the plot forward, which is what the little girl is basically at a certain point in the film. But also the dentist guy did, because Kong was Kong at some point he got back up to the surface world just to go see a doctor, basically. Have a doctor appointment, basically.
Yeah, but yeah, the conspiracy theorist guy, Bernie, he's still doing his show. And yeah, he's still doing it. And then the main scientist character, I think it was Elena Andrews or something.
I think Elena or whatever, yeah, something like that. She comes to him because out of all, like, her scientist group say it's this, but she views him because he kind of does this for not just as a hobby, but for a living as well. So he can have a better understanding of what it could possibly mean outside of just some seismic charges.
Yeah, and you would think he would actually get like a bigger promotion in his career after he exposed the Mechagodzilla conspiracy in the last movie.
No, but I guess it was kind of told that the higher ups in that sort of thing didn't give him the credit, so now he kind of reverted back to being that conspiracy theorist guy, which he kind of did complain about because of the fact that even though he did a show and it's somewhat doing well, there are some people who don't believe in him, basically.
Well, I mean, why would anyone not believe in him? They live in a world where these giant monsters coexist with them. You would think someone would take this guy more seriously, and at least what he's talking about is not the craziest of conspiracies.
No, it's not. But there are, again, some people out there who didn't believe in him, basically. As he talks about how that one troll by the name of, what was it, Godzilla? Whatever.
Yeah, there was a troll mentioned in there, but I don't think they dwelled too much on that.
No, he just mentioned one in particular, which is kind of funny because, that would be the case of, like, somebody, picking out somebody in particular that always comes back just to troll or whatever, and he's just, that person's like,
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, these monsters exist. I mean, this opens the door for, like, basically him like proving all his theories right.
Yeah.
Because it's like they established, like, Monarch published their studies to the public.
Yeah.
They basically revealed all their secrets to everybody, so everyone around the world knows about the Hollow Earth. They know about Skull Island and all these monsters. It's like there's nothing like that the government's hiding anymore. All this information's out.
Which is kind of like you get to the point because of that, because when Godzilla killed the...
Oh yeah, that's another scene. Basically, Godzilla fights another one of the kaiju in Rome.
Yeah.
Which is this giant crab spider thing called Scylla? I think that's how you say its name. It's Scylla.
Yeah, like Cilia or Scylla. But anyways, after killing it, and then he kind of like sleeps in the Coliseum as like a bed.
Yeah.
And then Italy was like, complaining, and the director goes, Just tell them, it's, it's Godzilla's doing, all right? I know you don't want to blame it on him. Don't blame it on him, because otherwise that Scylla would have destroyed all of the country itself. Be thankful that Godzilla killed it, all right? And is just sleeping now.
Yeah, and actually, during the fight scene, you actually saw Godzilla run on all fours.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting, because
And also use his arms, too.
Yeah, he did crawl on all fours in Godzilla vs. Kong, but here you actually see him run on all four.
Yeah, run on all four, and he also used his, arms and hands as like a fisticuff, basically.
Yeah, and I have to wonder if, like, that was an unused idea from an unmade American Godzilla film that they actually put into here.
Yeah.
I might be onto something, because there was a Godzilla film they were going to make. They started development around, like, the early 90s. It was due for 1996.
Yeah.
One of the concept art that I saw was Godzilla on all fours.
Yeah.
It was like running on all fours and fighting on all fours.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, you take the unused concept and you put it here. Interesting.
Yep.
And yeah, that fight scene was actually pretty cool to see. It was a bit short though. Because like he does eventually pin down Scylla and then like uses the atomic breath and like through his mouth and basically annihilates him.
Similar concept of how he took down the other kaiju in the 2014 film.
Yes, but then again, I'm also reminded the older Godzilla films, there were a few of them that did have short fight scenes.
Yep.
Maybe it's because insects and arachnids and other creatures, those are like the easier opponents for Godzilla to fight.
Probably, but then that gets to the other part eventually, because we get to the point where Godzilla goes to a nuclear facility in France.
Oh, before we get to that, I also did want to mention the Colosseum scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where he sleeps in the Colosseum.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if Godzilla would really do that.
Sleep there?
Yeah, because in the older films, he never really slept in, like, open, landmarks or ancient landmarks like that, he'd always go back into the ocean and sleep at the bottom of the ocean.
Hey, sometimes if you found a good spot to sleep in, like a coliseum for his size, where he could kind of like circle around, just kind of like cuddle up like that in his sake, he probably is like, you know what, this is probably just a good spot to sleep in. I would, you know, this is.
But if I was a giant kaiju, I would just find it a little uncomfortable sleeping in a limited space like that, and I got all this stuff around me, and then let's say I wake up and I accidentally destroy it, and I'm like, oh no, now the humans are gonna attack me and get angry at me.
Well, he knows like that, you know, it's kind of circular around. So in his case, being a lizard, so he's just kind of like, all right, what to do today?
That could be the case. But yeah, eventually he does sense that a threat is coming, and that's when he goes to France, like you said, and he starts absorbing the radiation of a nuclear plant.
Yeah, and then he goes up even further north to the North, Arctic, where he faces off against
another kaiju,
Tiamat,
which is this like serpentine dragon thing.
Yeah, in the Monsterverse. Although Tiamat is actually a Mesopotamian god, although Tiamat in that one is actually supposed to be Mother Earth, basically itself, I believe.
Well, that might have been too cosmic for this movie.
Yeah, but it is supposed to be kind of like this kaiju, basically, as well. I mean, Tiamat's supposed to kind of like this be giant as well. In any case, though, but it was like just as short as the previous fight in the film. It only took about 10 seconds.
Yeah, and I think because it's a serpent, it's a much easier opponent to fight.
Yeah.
You have something that's a little more complex, that would make for a much more interesting fight.
Yeah.
And actually, now that I think about it, instead of Tiamat, they could have put Manda in this movie. Because in the Godzilla kaiju mythos, or anything Toho's done, they have a serpentine, slender dragon called Manda that has appeared in some of the movies. But I guess, Legendary and Warner Brothers, they didn't have the rights from Toho to use that character, so they had to come up with their own. Which I don't mind, because there has been instances where, they have to come up with their own kaiju if they don't have the rights to an existing character.
Yeah. But anyways, though, Tiamat was, I also heard a little bit, some people were complaining because Tiamat was supposed to be, stronger, basically, which, at one hand, I can kind of get that. It should have been a little bit more of a fight against Tiamat.
Maybe, I think, didn't Tiamat constrict Godzilla during the fight?
It did a little bit, but Godzilla was able to just use the laser, kind of just...
Oh yeah, use the atomic breath.
As like a beam of sorts, just to slice. And then he kind of goes right into Tiamat's domain and kind of just powers up again.
But basically he has to freeze himself in ice in order to do that.
Freeze, go into the center to kind of like in this ice chamber, basically, and gather all the energy, basically, that Tiamat had.
Oh yeah.
To basically kind of go Super Saiyan, and I say that in a Dragon Ball Z type of way because you know how, I don't know if you've seen Dragon Ball a little bit, but...
I've seen just clips, not the entire show.
But you've seen how Goku, he gets he goes from black hair to yellow hair, then there's another form where he goes from yellow to blue, and blue to purple, and purple to silver, all that sort of stuff. He has different colored hair for different forms, basically.
Oh yeah.
He has different level of ascensions, basically.
Yeah, well, didn't he have a form where he turns into a beast? Like this big. I know it's a giant monster, and it's got this ape features to it.
I don't know which one's that one, but I think the highest one where it's like a silver basically, which is like Ultra Instinct, which is basically kind of you are basically almost like light speed or beyond that, fast basically.
Okay, but yeah, when Godzilla does power up,
he gets that purple.
Yeah, he gets the purple,
pink.
The purple breath with a little pink, and I'm like, looks like you are basically trying to do what Shin Godzilla did with the purple breath.
Yeah. I kind of thought a bit more of Goku, where it's all right, he goes from blue to that pink purple. He's powering up basically. He's going Ultra Saiyan.
Did you notice he had some dorsal fins around the shoulders, and he was growing some around the end of the tail?
Oh yeah.
I mean, okay, the more you power up, I guess you're gonna have little features like that.
Or the scale starts to, sharpen up or or keep growing a little bit more so he can have more energy to contain basically.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, with the Godzilla scenes we're mentioning right now, it's because Godzilla doesn't really have a lot of screen time in this.
Not quite yet. He isn't. He's trying to do his own thing while also when we circle back to Kong. After his doctor appointment, he goes back down to...
Oh, yeah, he goes to the surface, and then the scientist characters are worried that, well, he's going to the surface, Godzilla will sense him, that could lead to a fight.
First time, it didn't really happen because Kong was just, minding his own business, so Godzilla's like, probably sense like, okay, if he's just not doing anything, I guess I don't have to worry about him quite yet.
So I gotta go do my business.
Yep.
But yeah, Kong gets to the surface, and they basically have to sedate him and replace his infected tooth.
Yep, with basically a replacement tooth, basically.
So they hire basically this dentist doctor that can handle giant kaiju.
Ace Ventura Light.
Yeah, like I saw
Trapper.
I saw people were comparing him to Ace Ventura in their reviews.
Well, it also, probably helps in their case where one of the soldier called him and, when he was, trying to get in charge, he's like, "Do you listen here, you Ace Ventura wannabe?"
Yeah. And actually, I mean, it's kind of interesting they went the Ace Ventura route with this guy, but thankfully he did not try to, emulate Jim Carrey.
No.
Because Jim Carrey is basically his own personality. And anyone who knows Jim Carrey very well will know where I'm getting at. Is he has a very wild personality.
Yeah.
And he's so wacky and cartoony. But this guy, he doesn't really come off as cartoony. I mean, he gets to have some fun, but he's not he doesn't really have that wacky angle that Jim Carrey had with his characters.
No, but he is also, not only he's like a doctor dentist, but he's also sort of like an expedition explorer type of guy because he can sense it a little bit like, something ain't right here. So it's like it smells rotten, like dead corpse or something like that.
Certainly. And yeah, they replaced Kong's infected tooth with a metal tooth.
Yep.
Obviously, Kong likes the metal tooth, and he's like, make sure you look more cooler.
Or he's like, okay, that's better than what I had going here. And then after like a couple hours in his term, he's like, all right, time to go back down. Thanks for the doctor appointment.
Yeah, so he goes back down. And I don't remember. Did he bring his axe with him to the surface, or was it down in the Hollow Earth?
I think he might have brought it with him just because he needs it to tag it along with. I'm not too sure. Anyways, they actually travel with him back down to investigate the seismic charges, basically.
Yeah.
Because Benny or
it was Bernie,
the conspiracy theorist guy, told them, he's like, all right. This is what I found. Based on the seismic charges or based on the wavelength, it's the same thing as this creature did, and it's the same thing as this one did. And basically, the whole point, the end of it, long story short, it's an SOS signal.
And yeah, that's what they figure out, that the visions Gia is receiving. It's some kind of SOS signal, and they need to find out what its meaning is.
Yep.
So when they go down to the Hollow Earth, they replicate that scene from Godzilla vs. Kong where it's the flashing lights, and everyone's like distorted with their audio. They're like, ah. And I mean, I will say this: if you are prone to seizures, be careful with this scene because there's a lot of flashing strobe lights.
Yep. Only for a brief moment in this particular one, basically. I think that was the only time where they kind of did that scene of teleporting through the portal. Because then after that, they don't do it really as much, and then
yeah, they didn't want to overuse it. They just wanted to do it again from Godzilla vs. Kong. But anyway, they get down to the Hollow Earth, and then Kong, he's exploring the Hollow Earth and he's looking for more of his kind.
While the humans investigate the signal or trying to find that, Kong does his own investigating, which led him back to the area where he kind of got the wolves basically, and he kind of realized, well, there's more to it down there.
So he goes down there, and then he notices all these crystals, and his axe starts glowing.
Yeah.
And he's looking around, and as he goes through the cave, he eventually comes to an uncharted part of the Hollow Earth.
Yep. And the first thing he sees is a little monkey.
Basically a mini Kong.
Yeah.
And I think because at one point they were toying around with the idea, let's make a movie called Son of Kong.
Yeah.
I think they put the idea in here almost.
Yeah.
But he's not. But the little ape isn't really the biological son of Kong.
No.
It's more like an adoptive son.
Yeah, you could say so to speak. Yeah, even because he looked, in terms of color and everything like that, completely different from King Kong, basically, or Kong.
Yeah,
So,
they did give the little ape a name, which I don't think was name dropped, but I remember reading it's Suko. That was the name I heard somewhere.
well, in the quote of Kratos, boy.
Oh yeah, that's something I wanted to bring up too because I saw a review. Someone was comparing the dynamic that Kong has with the little ape to Kratos and Atreus.
Which
Atreus, is that how you say it? From the new God of War games.
Which you could see very much a lot. Kong being Kratos because Kratos has his.
He's got the axe.
yeah.
He's got the beard.
Yep. And he's kind of like giving the whole, over here, boy, over here.
And this is no place for a boy. You must learn to be a warrior.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see where people are coming from, and I have not, admittedly, have not played the new God of Wars in depth. I'd like to.
Yeah.
But that was something a lot of people were bringing up in their reviews, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I see where you're coming from.
Yep, and then it's kind of funny because at first the boy attacked him, and then other girl, other giant, Kongs or so to speak.
How the scene plays out is like Kong lowers his weapon when he realizes there's more like me, and then he's like, "It is all right. I will not hurt you." And he gives out his hand for permission, and then the little ape like bites the little finger, and then Kong's like, "Ugh,
What are you doing? Get back here!" And all of a sudden, three more came out of nowhere to jump him.
They come out of nowhere, and then they fight him, and then Kong's like, "Wait, I'm you."
Yeah, but then he's like, wait, I'm you guys, and then he starts fighting back a little bit because they weren't listening per se. And then the boy starts attacking. So he's like, he uses the boy and starts, swinging him around as like a little toe whip.
Oh yeah, and as they're going on in the fight, I can't recall if one of those apes escaped or he got all three of them.
One of them escaped. Really, well, I think. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I think a couple of them escaped. Really, if you think about it, only one basically sort of died, as we saw on screens. Or supposedly died basically because he was about to fall. Kong grabs him, he brings him back up, but then he still grabs like a little tooth knife or something like that. Kong's like, "What the heck? I just saved your life!"
Yeah,
and then he just pushes him to the cliff, and it's like, "All right, he's dead." Yeah, now he's dead.
Yeah, and then of course Kong and the little ape, they start bonding with each other as they trek across the Hollow Earth. At one point, they stop in a lake for a drink.
Yeah, or like a bath drink, and then all of a sudden a serpent monster comes out of nowhere, and then Kong kills him and basically has him for dinner per se.
And the little ape runs away, which makes sense because it's not strong enough to take on a big beast like that.
Until he sees not only the axe, and then all of a sudden like severed heads and everything else like that. And Kong's like, "All right, let's go sit down and eat." And the boy, follows him, and he's like, he's looking kind of hungry, and then Kong's like,
"Here, take this piece."
He's like, "Come on, grab it, eat, boy," and tosses.
And I don't want it. And then eventually he does end up eating it.
Yeah, and then you kind of realize that Kong's kind of friendly, basically.
Yeah, again, furthering that dynamic that's similar to Kratos and Atreus.
Yeah.
Atreus, how do you say the guy's name?
I think it's Atreus or something like that. But anyways,
it
gets to the point where, also before we continue, the human side of it, they realize that one of their bases was attacked, basically, and destroyed.
Yeah, the Monarch outpost they had set up in Godzilla vs. Kong basically gets destroyed. And the cameras do show footage of something destroying it. It's like another ape, but it's not very clear because all you see is the eye of it, and you just see the feet of it.
They investigate further. They get into the forest a little bit, and then one of the soldiers that went with him died due to this.
It was like a soldier or security guy, and he's basically like a no-nonsense guy, wants to keep everything in order.
Yeah, but him trying to get order, or him being charged, led to him being eaten by a
carnivorous tree stump.
A carnivorous. It was like a Venus flytrap, but in the form of a tree, basically.
I wouldn't say it's a Venus flytrap. It looked more like an organic tree stump.
Well, it was, but it acted like it because it waited until something was like close by and nearby before grabbing it and eating it, basically.
Yeah.
So you kind of like a carnivorous tree trap.
Something like that.
I don't know how you like to say it, but something where it's like similar to a Venus flytrap, except in a form of a tree stump or a tree, where it's like it's waiting until something comes by and then
it attacks and eats them. But I will say this, it's nothing like the tree monsters from the original Spyro the Dragon. This is completely something else.
yeah, and of course it scares Bernie. He's like, oh my god!
Yeah, and then they get out of there because they realize how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the security guy, soldier guy died, again, because these characters are so lightly written, when characters die, you just don't really feel anything.
No, he don't. You're just like, well, that's another, victim to the kill.
But
kill
then,
count.
But then again, that character would have gotten kind of annoying with his no nonsense trying to keep everything under control.
Yeah,
but these characters are keeping it under control. They're just trying to have a little fun with themselves.
And also, not only fun with themselves, but also have their own sort of seriousness, whether that be looking at the view, looking at the world around them, or recording it, or...
Oh yeah, Bernie was bringing the camcorder around, and he was basically trying to document it all.
Yep.
But people keep interrupting him, and he's like, "Dude, really?"
I would have kept the interruption because that would have been live footage.
Well, yeah, it would have been live footage, but there were two moments where he was like, "Recording in progress," or he's like, "Dude, really? I'm trying to record here."
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be the same too if I was taking my production very seriously.
I know, but this is kind of like you're in uncharted territory. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, per se. I know you try to be serious, but at the same time, it's already serious when you're in a new area. Come on.
Basically a new uncharted area, and there's just so much to see, so much to document. The world's got to know about this for the most part. But hang on a sec, folks. We just got to check something quick.
But yeah, so eventually after the security guard dies from getting eaten by the tree, they found a temple, basically, which looks like it worships Mothra.
Yes, and they discovered that this is apparently older than they think. Because they had found evidence of Mothra early on the surface. They didn't find any in the hollow earth, except maybe one cave painting in a tunnel somewhere.
Yep. And then they eventually led to this other area, which was kind of like camouflage, or...
Basically what that was, it was some kind of organic portal? Some kind of weird portal thing.
I want to say an organic camouflage, because it wasn't like when the girl put her hand, when they put their hand on it, they were able to kind of bubble it, as if it was kind of like a little bubble gum or whatever the case may be, a little bubble where you can kind of push on it and it kind of goes.
Yeah, and it sort of has these little lighting twitches.
Yeah, lighting twitches and stuff like that. It's not like when you put your hand on it, it doesn't go through like a portal. They had to literally rip it open basically to get to the other side.
Yeah, it was like an organic door, not a portal. I don't know why I got the two mixed up.
Yeah, it was like an organic door that was camouflage basically, thinking it's one way, but it's nope, it actually goes to another area that's trying to keep hidden. Why? Well, we eventually kind of figure out that it's where where we
find out that there are possible survivors of the Iwa people. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, that they worship Mothra.
Yeah, because if you remember in Kong Skull Island, there was a tribe of Iwi people on Skull Island, and then Gia was the last of them because the storm, again, enveloped the island. Turns out there were more of them under the hollow earth.
Yep.
And I don't think they ever said if these were survivors from Skull Island or that they've been down here for a very long time, but I think it was the latter. They've been down here for a very long time.
And it's just that Skull Island was probably once an access point, basically, for these people to go up to.
Yeah, because I remember in the earlier films, they established that Skull Island, it is somewhat connected to the hollow earth because the ground of Skull Island was bedrock. It was very hollow.
Yep.
And so... that's where the skull crawlers were coming up from.
Yep.
And one character in Godzilla vs. Kong said that it was the hollow earth come to the surface.
Yeah.
And there probably was an access point, but it's hard to get to that access point now because again the storm enveloped the island.
Yep.
But anyway, we find these Iwa people, they're now down there. They're down there, and then they recognize Gia as one of their own.
Yeah, because they kind of recognize like that facial features that she had as being one of their own. So they're like, "All right, Laura, keep on your guard, but not too serious. She's one of us. Bring her." It's like bring her with us.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how these Iwa people sort of understand what the other characters are saying in English, because we've never seen these Iwa people talk in any of the movies.
No, they kind of use sort of very similarly to kind of like telepathy, basically, so to speak, where it's their eyes and thoughts and facial feature that communicates to the other people.
Maybe the telepathy allows them to understand English somehow.
Or any sort of language.
That could be the case, but that's just my theory. They never say that in the actual film.
Probably not, I don't know. But they can also understand sign language too, to a degree.
Well, I think that's easy for them to understand, because
Yeah.
if they still communicate telepathically, they can just still have a physical way of talking.
Yeah, which also they sometimes when they do like lower the weapons, basically.
Yeah, but for the most part, we find out that Gia, she actually the reason why she was getting all these messages was because she is actually someone who's supposed to bring Mothra back.
Yeah, like Monster Reborn Mothra.
Oh yeah, but it's not really a monster reborn in this case, because I remember at the end of King of the Monsters they established there is a second Mothra egg somewhere. I'm guessing maybe the Iwa people came up from the Hollow Earth and they brought it down here.
Yeah.
And they need her, Gia, to resurrect Mothra,
Yes.
the new Mothra.
Because it is like because she was part of the Skull Island people that were supposed to be like, yep, she's part of Skull Island. She must be the one that reawakens or revives Mothra.
Oh yeah, and there's like so many crystals down here that give off these like colorful lights, because I mean it's really fantastical and it has to be that way.
Yeah.
What happens next after that?
Well, while they were kind of reviving Mothra, Kong and the boy.
Oh yeah.
The boy brings Kong to where all the other apes are, and
oh yeah, this was one of the best scenes in the whole movie. Actually, they cross a dead kaiju skeleton.
Yep, and it's a kind of like into a volcanic region.
Yeah, they go to this volcanic region, and this is where they find that there are surviving apes.
But they are sort of being under the control, like they're kind of like slave workers or under these little pawns or little soldiers being under the control of
a villain known as Scar King.
Yep.
And they establish actually something kind of cool about the Scar King is that once the surface humans and the Hollow Earth humans, they lived in harmony with the Titans.
Yep.
All coexisted. And there were great apes that acted... What did the great apes act as again?
I think both kaijus, like Titans and apes, were like guardians of sorts, basically.
Okay, guardians. And then at some point or another, this Scar King ape, he decides, I'm taking over.
Yep.
And I'm going to go to war with Godzilla's kind.
Yep, which at some point it was like a near defeat until Godzilla kind of like suppressed them into Hollow Earth, basically.
Yeah, basically Godzilla banished them all to the Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, because they established in Godzilla vs. Kong, there was some kind of war between Kong's kind and Godzilla's kind, which explains the rivalry between them.
Yep.
And in this case, they basically also reveal that there was a war. The war was clearly led by this evil ape.
Yeah.
Unless it was a separate faction, not from the main ape war. Then maybe there's more details that we could fill in the blanks on that one.
Well, either way, Scar King led the charge against Godzilla. Godzilla banished the apes to Hollow Earth, and now Scar King is kind of like rebuilding his army or his empire to retake.
Basically, retake the surface world. Although
Yeah.
his ape army wasn't really that big.
No, they were like being put into slavery per se. A lot of them were. Because you can kind of see almost in every other historical like movies or films wherever we see like the Roman Empire when they come across some like the slavery and stuff like that, it's all picking up rocks
or getting the bricks across.
Yeah. So they're kind of doing all that while there were some like wardens or sergeants trying to lead, try to tell them keep it up, soldiers, or keep it up, whatever.
Yeah, and when Kong first discovers these, his facial expression, he's like, "This is my people."
but
There's more of me.
there's more of me. But what the heck are they doing? But then
And I think that's where the little Kong's like, well, they're all enslaved. They serve this one tyrannical ape.
yeah, but you've been kind to me enough. So can you try to free them? And it's like, don't worry. And he grabs one of the ape that fell down, was getting yelled at. He's like,
It's okay. I got you.
yeah. The other guy, the other ape goes, who the bleep you are?
Yeah, he's like, who are you to help the weaker one? Get back in line.
And Kong goes, and who the
Yeah,
you?
yeah, and then Kong's like, you talk too much.
I kind of view it as more of who the are you?
Yeah, that was
who the frick are you?
yeah, that was actually pretty funny when he did that punch.
Yeah, and it's like, who's in charge here?
And then the Scar King eventually reveals himself, and he's like, "Who enters my domain?"
Everyone bows except for Kong, and he's like, and you are?
I am Kong, King of the Hollow Earth. And then Scar King's like, "No, I'm the King of the Hollow Earth."
Yeah, he's like, no, I ain't king. And then he sees like the...
Yeah, he sees the metal tooth, and he's like, "Oh, look at this! He's got a metal tooth. He doesn't have real teeth like us." And then he's like, "Ooh, oh, ha, 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 ha."
Some laugh and some didn't, and he's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and then the little Kong starts laughing, and then the Scar King is like,
And he looks at him like, you brought him here to us?
yeah, and he's about to harm the little Kong. This other ape goes, "I'm sorry, my lord. He's young and foolish. He doesn't know what he means."
And he's like, well, if you don't want me to punish the boy, then maybe you should get punished.
Yeah, and then he punches him or kicks him into the lava, and then Kong's like, "Why did you do that?" And the Scar King's like, "Because for us, only the strong can survive. You show compassion. You are weak."
And Kong's like, no, I am strong. I am king.
And then they get into a battle in which the Scar King, he has this like this skeleton. No, it was a spine bone whip thing.
Yep, with a little
A little crystal on it.
yep, crystal at the end of it, kind of like a little like slice or like a little edge to the whip, meant for like slicing and probably like cutting or stabbing or whatever. Anyways, they get into a little bit of a fight basically, even though kind of you could say ends up in a draw, even though it looked like Scar King was about to win round one, but then
he like wraps the bone around Kong's neck, and he's like, "You're not the one to bring me down."
But then he kind of like chucks him to the side basically, so it's like a draw because Scar's like,
Yeah, he does this little menacing laugh where he's like, "You think you can beat me? You don't know the worst of it."
and he tells people, and he kind of like tells the other apes to release the prisoner basically, or release the pet,
or release Shimo.
Yeah, and then Shimo comes out in his icy. And
They established that Shimo is a she, actually.
Yeah, she comes out in chains basically, as like a pet basically, or a prisoner.
Oh yeah, and actually this is another thing I wanted to bring up too, because there was a rumor circulating around this movie for some time of who the real big bad was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, we all saw the Scar King in the promotional material,
Yeah.
but that there was something to suggest there would have been another villain that showed up.
Oh yeah, because of the whole like
The glowing eyes and the white breath.
And people didn't know if it was like if it was crystallization, which would have emphasized Space Godzilla.
Yeah, that was the rumor, is that it was either Space Godzilla or Biollante was going to show up in this.
And I think, was it Biollante like kind of like the other ice?
Biollante is basically plants mixed with Godzilla DNA. It's a Godzilla plant hybrid.
Yeah, but I think it was a little bit more in space just because people thought the ice were crystals, basically, so to speak.
Yeah, because Space Godzilla basically can manipulate crystals and grow crystals.
Yeah.
But I'm actually kind of happy they never went with Space Godzilla or Biollante in this.
Yeah.
Because I would say it's too early to do them. Like, you would want to do them later down the road, at least. And the other reason why is because I don't think Legendary and Warner Brothers had the rights to use those characters from Toho. So they had to come up with their own kaiju, which, again, I don't mind.
Yep.
But I will admit, Shimo's design was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a little similarity to Godzilla, but it was a cool design.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we see Shimo's got a chain around her neck because they established that Shimo did use her ice powers in the last Ice Age.
Yep.
And
Or
then-
she was the one responsible for the last Ice Age, which was also under the influence of Scar, basically.
Yeah, because Scar, he's got this like crystal that's like a mind control device almost.
Yeah.
And he uses it to mind control Shimo and go, obey me.
Yeah, or do this or something like that, at which Shimo uses the ice power to basically gave Kong a frostbite on his right hand, basically.
Yeah, like Kong tries to block it with the axe, it doesn't work, and then his arm gets frozen with his hand. It breaks free, but then he's like, "Urgh, urgh."
It's like a massive frostbite, which, you know, for a lot of, even us human, we get like that big of a frostbite, it's going to cause a lot of nerve damage.
Oh yeah. And so Kong, he has no choice but to retreat because he can't fight against this foe that's much stronger than him.
Yeah, or at least can't find it in a 2v1, in a 1v2, basically. So he needs help, basically.
Yes, and so then the little Kong basically tells him, run Kong, run, go this way.
He's like, escape, which Kong does, and then Scar is like, after him!
Get him, you fools!
Which they get into a chase scene again, and then he eventually escapes from them through means of traps and whatnot.
Yeah, like he lures them away, and then he like gets them into a corner and thinks that there's nowhere to run. And then they see this like vine wire, and they go, wait, let's cross the wire. That way it won't trigger the trap. Then we can take him on. Ching. And then like Kong puts up his fists, and then he's like, come on, get me.
He's like, alright, I guess I have to fight this out. And then it's just, sip. Who cut the rope? Nobody cut the rope.
And then, it's falling! And then they all die, and then it turns out the little Kong saved him.
With cutting the other rope on the top end, and Kong goes, oh, thank God.
And then he like gives this like little smile, knowing smile, and he's like, good work on helping me.
Yeah, he's like, oh, thank God you helped.
And then the little Kong's like, you're hurt, your hand.
And he's like, alright, let's go find my other buddies. The little buddies. And then they eventually found them, you know, right in the temple area. And then, yeah, Kong's like, you know, and they realize Kong's badly hurt. How? Well, his right hand arm is...
Severe frostbite damage.
Yep.
But there is something we do have that could give him the upper hand.
Or at least revive him, in a manner of speaking, which was basically gauntlet mode.
Oh yeah, they give Kong a power gauntlet, which you have seen in the promotional stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, they give him a power gauntlet, and I maybe heard some Infinity Gauntlet comments here and there when that first was shown.
Yeah, basically, yep.
Just no Infinity Stones. It's just a good power gauntlet.
Yep, and that that gave him the boost basically. But the idea was, all right, we obviously there's gonna need some help basically. So while they try to revive Mothra, you go get help, and Kong goes, all right.
We need to go get Godzilla's help. He could take on Shimo. But then the humans are like, no, that's a bad idea, because the last time they met, it led to like a lot of destruction.
It could be war again. And it's like, well, I mean, that's the best chance we got. We gotta get Mothra then.
Definitely.
Because Mothra can convince, Godzilla to calm down.
Oh, yeah. Because they have that symbiotic relationship. But I did want to bring up the Power Gauntlet plot points. I didn't notice this the first time, but now I realize it now. This was a similar plot point in Samurai Jack episode 18, where Samurai Jack, he fights these powerful ultra robots that were made out of adamantium. Mm-hmm. Can't beat them the first time, so he gets a power gauntlet from the scientists that created those robots, and he's able to beat them all later on.
Oh, yeah?
That's this plot point, just with kaiju.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, meanwhile, they're trying to revive Mothra. Kong basically gets into Egypt. It's like,
yeah, they discover that there's two other portals that they did not know about.
Yeah, that could lead back to the surface. So then Kong, there's multiple portals around the areas. Kong uses one of them. He gets to Egypt, and then he's just like, Godzilla!
Oh yeah, that was actually an interesting setting when they go to Egypt, because we do get to see a little destruction of the place.
Because it's like King Kong went, all right, I need to find a place to communicate with, Godzilla. And Godzilla was all the way over in like the Morocco area.
Yeah, he was like on top of a cliff.
In like Morocco or like something with a G. Anyways, it was like in Morocco, and he's all the way over in Egypt. And they were communicating from like countries apart, and they're like, Godzilla!
And then Godzilla's like, Kong! and then he like jumps into the water.
Yeah, he's like, over here!
Yeah, that was actually kind of a cool scene where he jumps
then-
and he's on top of the cliff.
Yep, he jumps into the water, he gets to Egypt, he starts charging at him, because he's like, you're in mine. Yep.
Yeah, this is where I can add the dialogue is, you know the rules. This is my territory. Go back to where you came from.
No, I need to explain with you. I did not want to fight. We had to go down there.
But Godzilla's not listening, and then he's like, and then they start fighting, and then Godzilla uses power breath, and he basically destroys the pyramids.
Well, yeah, so to speak. But before that, though, it was kind of like more like they're like colliding each other, and Kong's like, no. Let me explain. We need to get down to Hollow Earth. All right, there's a threat coming in here.
I'm not listening to you. You enter my territory, I have to put an end to you. And this time, it'll be for good.
And then Kong really was like, I need you to calm down. Ow. Just calm down for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, he's like punching him, and then this is where Kong could again go, stay down! If I wanted it, you'd be dead already!
Which he kind of did, because after that one punch, he was grabbed by the table, going to the portal, was like, alright, I didn't want to do this a hard way, Godzilla, but I'm dragging you with me down to Hollow Earth so we can fight this threat.
But then he like powers up his dorsal fin, he's like, I'm not coming with you.
Like, wait, what? And it's like, Godzilla, wait, come on, just listen to me. There's a threat.
But then, like, Godzilla pins him down on the ground, and he's like, I'm going to end you once and for all.
Mothra goes, enough.
Yeah, Mothra comes in, and she's like, stop, Godzilla. And then Godzilla's like, my queen. And then they start talking with the little girl, and then they're like, Godzilla, Kong is not the enemy here. There is a bigger enemy down in the Hollow Earth. And then
Godzilla's like, wait, who? It's like, there's a giant monkey down there, or, supposedly his name's Scar King, and he's trying to come back up here.
Scar King. Scar King is still alive. I thought...
And he also has this another one of you, but he does ice ability.
Shimo. He has Shimo prisoner. But then Kong's like, yes, he has Shimo prisoner. He's using a crystal to mind control her. If we break the crystal, we can free her.
I don't know if it's like breaking the crystal per se, but it's like, can you team up with me at least to go down there and prevent them from coming up here?
And then Godzilla's like, I will aid you, but know this. This does not change our rivalry. I will make a truce for now, but when this is over, you go back to your territory, I stay in mine, and if you break the rules, I won't hold back next time.
He's like, hey, look, we're good rivals, all right? We're able to beat each other up at least a few times here, all right? Let's just go down there and face him.
Maybe I'll think about our rivalry a bit. Maybe we'll team up with something much more destructive down the road. I don't know. But it doesn't change the fact we're still rivals.
All right, fine, whatever. Let's just get down there. Meanwhile, Scar King breaks through the barrier.
Yeah, because one of the apes, one of the surviving apes that was going after Kong, like, gets out of the rubble, sees what's happening, runs over, and then he's like, my lord. And then the Scar King's like, what is it?
He's like, what is it?
And then he's like, they found 2 portals to the surface. The 2 portals we have been looking for.
The surface?
And then they free Shimo, and then he gets on the back of Shimo, and he's like,
we ride.
We go to the portal, and when we reach the surface, destroy everything in your path.
Yeah, but it's like, we ride to the portal, to the surface world. And then they break through the barrier, and they're like, and then he kind of looks at the portal, kind of like flickering a little bit, or, like fading. Then he sees the 2 pyramids kind of.
He sees the 2 crystals about to forge, and then he tells Shimo, freeze that before they connect.
Yep.
And they eventually do freeze it, but it's not going to last long, I can tell you that much.
Yep, no, it didn't last long per se, but it would have given him enough time to kind of like get to the portal, basically, if needed.
And
but
then he sees a flash, and then it goes down and it slams, causing this big shockwave.
He's like, wait, what? And then all of a sudden, it's Godzilla and Kong, kind of like.
Yeah, they're running, which is admittedly pretty cartoony, but also kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, and it was in the trailer too, where they get up and they're like, "Shah, he's right there, Godzilla.
Let's get him."
And then Scar King, and it's like, all right, Shimo, there they are.
take him! And then eventually all four, they like come together this way. And this was actually a really cool shot, I will not deny.
Oh yeah, when they kind of like jump at each other, kind of like a setting up. It's almost like like the cinematic, even though it was also in the trailer, but it's like the idea of like two heroes, two villains, kind of about to go clash head to head.
Yeah, it very much looked like it came out of a comic book. Yeah. And then it had like shots of all four of them with their faces up close.
But of course, right before they kind of like butt heads, gravity.
Yeah, they basically enter zero-G environment.
Yep, which they're all like, oof, whoa.
Yeah, and then they have to like fight in the zero-G, which leads to, again, some really cool images.
Yep, which then you have Shimo and Godzilla kind of like duking it out a little bit in zero gravity, and then Scar King and King Kong duking it out in zero gravity.
Yeah.
And then
of course, the little Kong gets caught in the crossfire, and
but by another person.
Yeah, the other ape is like, "You betrayed your king. I'm going to take care of you for him."
Yeah. While that's happening, also the anti-gravity at some point just goes away, and everyone starts to fall, basically.
Yeah, and then they all like fall through the portal to the surface.
Same portal, actually, just coincidentally enough.
Yeah. And when they fall through that portal, they do not go to Egypt. They actually go to Rio.
Yep, they go to South America to fight. Although Kong was like, my axe!
Yeah, he's like, I can't fight without the axe! But he just falls through the portal because the pole is too much.
He can still fight without the axe, but it's like, I need the axe for assistant.
Definitely. And then they all end up in Rio.
Yep.
And the Scar King like sees all the puny humans and he's like...
Well, he looks at the sun, he looks at everything, and he's like, the surface world.
I'm on the surface. Then he sees all the humans and he's like, cower before me. I am your new king.
Yeah, but then Shimo also gets up and then he's,
Shimo starts freezing everything.
Darkening the clouds and then freezing the city place too. And then next thing you know, as Scar King kind of like laughs or chuckles or making that villainous speech of fear be, I am king and stuff like that. Kong once again goes, shut the frick up.
Yeah, he's like, and then he's like, you again. And this time I am not holding back.
And then he like points to Shimo. Shimo's about to do another ice breath thing. Godzilla's like, not this time.
Yeah, and then it leads to this huge city brawl with like a ton of destruction and all these really cool shots.
Yeah, and it's like 2v2 again.
Yeah, basically this is exactly what you came for. All this monster action, and they deliver.
Yep. Also, Mothra during the whole anti-gravity scene as well was also helping out by kind of like spitting at the other gorillas.
Spitting at the other apes, getting them stuck, and they're like, oh, it's too thick, I can't get it off.
And then saves the other people from falling too because she grabs it and it's like, all right, here you go. Bleep. Time to go help.
Oh, yeah. And then they all go to the surface, and then it basically leads to the climax of the movie, which is the huge monster ball. They're all destroying the skyscrapers, wrecking stuff. Probably killing people in the process.
Meanwhile, boy Kong kind of like gets rid of the other one that was fighting up, and then he sees the axe kind of stuck there. He's like, Kong's axe! And he grabs it and takes it with him through the portal. Yeah. They're still fighting it out. Next thing you know, while that's sort of happening, Shimo's breathing on Kong. Kong's blocking with his power gauntlet. And then Godzilla's like, alright, that's enough, Scar King.
Yeah, and then he like powers up a lot and then like just he goes
and he's like, alright, time to go back to where we came from. What? Whips it up, grabs it with his teeth, like, not this time. Whoop.
And then of course the Scar King loses a tooth during the fight, and then Kong's like, now you know what it's like.
Yep. He's like, oh. And I think that was after the first punch though. It's like, Pooah! It's like, yeah. And then that's when the whole sequence began with the brawl. And then of course, after Godzilla grabs the bone whip, tosses Scar King to the side, that he breaks it. Yeah, he breaks the bone, and then the crystal gets like separated. Yep. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, it's like, Kong, the crystal, and it's like, I'm a little bit missing right now. Yeah, and then they're like, oh, get the crystal, and then Scar King's like, oh, it's mine. Well, at first it's like, the crystal's like, Godzilla, I'm a little bit busy right now, Mishimo. Help me out here. And it's like, yeah, it's like, we gotta get the crystal, we gotta destroy it. But then the little, it's like, a little bit busy. Boosh. And it's like, all right, the crystal. It's like Scar King, like you said. It's like, no, that's mine. Yeah, it's mine. And then Godzilla's like, nope, I'm gonna get it. No, you don't. Yes, I will. And also, it's like, he looks up. You see Boy Kong. It's like, boy.
Yeah, and then the little Kong was like, ah! Destroys the crystal with the axe, and then Shimo gets free, and then I had this dialogue where Shimo's like, you broke the crystal. I'm free.
It's like, wait, the crystal's destroyed. And then Scar King's like, you broke the crystal, boy.
What have you done? You are gonna pay for that.
Kong goes, no, put the boy down. And he starts beating him up, and it's like he tosses him to Godzilla's like, Zilla.
Yeah, and then Shimo joins in, and then like she freezes the Scar King.
Well, it was kind of like the more of like, Shimo looks at Godzilla, and Godzilla's like, freeze him already. And he's like, oh, that's right, I'm free.
Yeah, and then the Scar King gets frozen.
And then Kong looks at him, and he's like, he's like, I will finish you up.
And
oh
then
God.
Finishes him off, gets the victory roar.
And Godzilla's like, is it over? Yes, it's over.
All right, then. But you know the rules. You go into your territory and don't come onto mine. But in the event a bigger threat does arise, I will think about it.
Roars into the victory as Kong and Shimo and little Kong, all look up, and victory basically as Godzilla breaths up in the air in victory basically, and also cleared the skies too.
Oh yeah. And then of course Godzilla goes back to the Coliseum and is like, well, I had a fun day, I'm going to rest again.
Yep, and then Kong, Boy, and Shimo returns back to the tribe basically, and it's like,
they all go back and Kong's the new ruler now.
Yep.
And then he gives his like big thing with the axe where he's like, I'm your king now.
Yep. And Mothra's like, goes, brings the little girl back, and it's like, all right, everything's good. Time to cover this up again, and I will fly away.
Yeah, and then the very final shot when we see Kong become the new ruler is the apes going, long live the king! Yep. Long live King Kong!
Yep.
So now he's officially King Kong in this. Now
he's, more of a title of king, basically. Even though he was king, but now it's legit king.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's pretty much it. And there's no post-credits, so if you were expecting setup for another movie, they're not doing that. Yeah. But this did make enough money, so they're definitely thinking about making another one.
Yep, definitely for sure.
And yeah, that's the movie. That's basically, it's a simple monster movie. Big spectacle, lots of fights, lots of nice characterization scenes with the monsters.
Basically, the main actors, the main show was the monsters, and the humans were just sideshows, and plus trying to move the plot along as well a little bit to some capacity.
Oh yeah. I think with, people are like, well, why are the human characters around? They're not all that interesting. Because, the writers of this universe have been thinking, let's make it all about the monsters, no human characters. Slowly but surely they might get there.
Slowly, yes. Although there will be still some humans interactions here and there. But they'll probably get to the point where it will be mainly a lot of monsters rather than humans' involvement.
Yeah, and the writers did say something about the next film being from Godzilla's perspective, and then Kong will have his scenes, but not a whole lot.
So probably more about Godzilla and then his enemy.
Whatever that's gonna be.
And then he may request the aid of Kong. He may go to Hollow Earth and be like, Kong, I need your help up here.
And then Kong's like, okay, but no fighting. I will get up there and help you.
He's like, what? He's like, you enter my domain. But what's going on?
I mean, yeah, they have the potential to, if they're going to do that, they have the potential to essentially make the same movie again.
Yeah, but in reverse.
Yeah, but maybe with a few details changed as well.
Yeah, it's a fight that Godzilla's like, okay, I'm going to need some help here. Kong!
Yeah, they'll definitely do that. And, I mean, I can think of a few possibilities on where this franchise could go.
Yeah.
Because there are a few Godzilla movies they could do modern remakes of.
Yeah.
And there is some setup that still kind of needs to be resolved from the other films.
Yeah.
Like in King of the Monsters, they use the oxygen destroyer to try and kill Ghidorah and Godzilla.
Yep. Which
does not prove to be effective. But what I do know is that the oxygen destroyer does create Destroya. Yeah. So you set up Destroya, but you got to get the rights from Toho if you're going to use him.
Yeah.
I mean, they could definitely go down that route if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I could also see them, again, if they wanted to introduce Space Godzilla, a Godzilla versus Space Godzilla remake, maybe a remake of Final Wars.
Yeah.
And maybe at some point or another they'll introduce aliens into this franchise. Even though Ghidorah was an alien, they could introduce like aliens that look like humans, but underneath the skin there's an actual alien being.
Yeah.
Which is what the Godzilla franchise has done.
Yeah.
They could do that, but I don't know where they're gonna go.
Yeah. Who knows?
But yeah, for the most part, I mean, this movie, it is what it is. If you're expecting something deep, it's just not going to be there. This is a monster visual spectacle brawl. It gives exactly what you want, and you don't need to ask for more.
And really, the only major dialogues is the communications between the kaijus.
Yeah, any scene featuring the kaijus, all interesting. That was the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But with the humans, that's where it was the weakest.
Yeah.
Because, again, these characters are so lightly written that there's not really a lot to get attached to.
No, the only thing you can probably remember them by is their capacity or how you recognize them by.
Yeah, their occupation or their personality or whatever is kind of quirky about them. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the filmmakers knew what they were making, and they weren't, like, lying about what they were making. They set out to essentially give an entertaining monster feature, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else to expect.
Yeah.
But for the people who went in and compared this unfavorably with Godzilla -1, I mean, they're two completely different things.
Yeah. No, it is different. Although, same monster in terms of Godzilla, but one is a little bit more in the serious tone of an atomic, repercussion versus this is more of a monster versus anime, cartoon, sort of vibe, basically, where we're entering into with the Monsterverse, where it's like monsters are the stars of the show, they're going to communicate with each other, and they're going to have their own fights, basically.
Yeah, and you were saying, like, anime and cartoon vibe to it. I was getting more of a Showa era vibe from the earlier Godzilla films.
The Showa, but I kind of say a little bit more of the anime, Dragon Ball, like that type of thing, where it's like, they're powering up, they're fighting, they're making some comedy scenes a little bit with each other, communicating, and then at some point they're gonna have the big, the big brawl, and then episode over.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, yeah, the filmmakers knew what they were doing. I got what I wanted, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I was not disappointed with this in the slightest. This is exactly what it needed to be.
Yep.
I mean, what I will say though is that I did actually want the MonsterVerse to continue when Godzilla vs. Kong was coming out.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of kaiju that this franchise could use.
Yep.
Again, they could do a modern remake of versus Destroya versus Space Godzilla, Biollante. I actually want to see a remake of Final Wars. That would be fun to watch.
We'll see how far it goes, but right now everyone kind of figures with the Godzilla Kong type movies, they're gonna know the monsters of the show, basically.
Yeah, and they could go back to a more serious angle and a darker angle and a scary angle if they wanted to.
Yep.
Because I remember the director of Godzilla 2014 said he would be happy to return to the franchise at some point or another.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's going to happen because he's too busy working on other stuff.
Yep.
And actually, the director of Godzilla 2014, he's attached to do the 7th Jurassic Park film.
That's like Jurassic World?
Yeah. The next Jurassic World movie.
Yeah, because there's Jurassic Park 1, 2, 3, the 3 World movies.
Yeah.
So, or 3 of the World movie, which is or Jurassic Park 4 or Jurassic World, then 5
Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, or Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and then Dominion, right?
Jurassic World Dominion, yeah, and they're gonna make another one, but I don't know why they want to make another one because you thought 6 was gonna be the ending.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought, because it's like, what more is there need to be done at this point? Because Jurassic Park, we saw the ending to that one after the Spino.
Yeah, with the Spinosaur running away. But 3 didn't really feel like a definitive ending. It was more of another adventure for people to go on.
It felt like it, but it was like, one of those things where it's like, it could, but it didn't happen until way later, which is what World kind of like sets up to be, where it's like, years later, basically.
Yeah, and then of course, the park goes bad and the dinosaurs start breaking out.
Yep. And then at some point, we got a Fallen Kingdom with the volcanic, but then they brought dinosaurs to the actual...
The mainland, and then they all get out, and they're all on the mainland now.
And they have actually now spread out, too, across the entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
Almost reclaiming what they once had, basically.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, with the 7th one that they're making, I think I have an explanation for why they're making another one. Because Universal knows they make money.
Yep.
They're not going to let a cash cow die. I mean, there's like 10 Fast and Furious films. Do you think Universal's going to let that go?
Probably not, but the people are going to get sick and tired of that Fast and Furious movie. Let's just be real.
Although Vin Diesel did say the 11th one is going to be the final movie.
Yeah, it's like he probably realized, and probably some other people within that franchise knows, you can only go so far with that one. I mean, there was a meme about, how they're, because Fast and Furious 1 was all like the, like 90s cars.
It was street racing and car culture.
And then we get the, Fast and Furious like 10 or something like that, or like close to what it is now, and it's like modern day cars. And then there was a joke where it's like, oh, we get the Fast and Furious 16, and we're on the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, gosh. But, well, they would never use the Millennium Falcon.
But
George Lucas would sue them for that.
No, but you get the joke. Now you have, like, spaceships drag racing and whatnot, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because they use the Millennium Falcon with TIE fighters flying around, too. That's, like, the joke of, yeah, we're going to get into space, and they're going to continue having these characters still here. It's like, when do we get to space?
Oh, definitely. When people get to space, that's usually when they run out of ideas.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're going nuts at this point.
Yeah.
And with the Jurassic franchise, it's like there's really nothing else for them to do.
Yeah, the only thing you can do is close it out at this point, because at the end of Dominion, they almost reclaimed the entire world, basically. So at what point, basically, you're just gonna say that the dinosaurs just kind of like reclaimed it all, basically?
Or they have to coexist with the other animals. But yeah, pretty much everyone from the world films and the original movies, they said that they're done. Yeah. They're all not coming back. But I did hear Scarlett Johansson could be in the next Jurassic film.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, you got big name, and then you got other big names that could show up.
Yeah, but it's like, it seemed like, what are you gonna do? Because at this point, yeah, it's either you have to coexist with the dinosaurs, or either that, or they take over, reclaim it again, or you find a way to re-extinct them again.
Yeah, but it's like, I just don't want them to make another one. But again, the director of Godzilla 2014 is attached to that.
Yeah.
We'll see if he remains attached to that, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a little thing I wanted to bring up. But I will say this, though, with the MonsterVerse, based on the 5 films we have seen, where does the new Godzilla movie rank?
I would say it's pretty high up there, just because of where it could lead to in the MonsterVerse, basically.
Let me think, because for me, Godzilla vs. Kong was one of the best ones in that franchise, because it was made with the intention of delivering these extremely big, epic fights.
Yeah. And
then just delivering on all that monster spectacle that you came to see for.
Yep.
The filmmakers knew that.
Yep.
A lot of people don't like there are people that don't like the 2014 one because there's not a lot of Godzilla in it.
Yep.
I've sort of warmed up to that film after watching the original Godzilla film from 1954. I understand what Gareth Edwards was doing with that movie.
Yep.
But I would say it's kind of one of the weaker ones because it could have used more monster action, and the human characters in that were pretty light. But with the slow burn, serious nature of it was a nice, welcome thing to have.
And then you can kind of bring Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla King of the Monsters, kind of like on equal playing field, basically.
They're kind of like 2 different types of entertainment. Whereas Kong Skull Island, it's a colorful adventure film.
Yeah.
It's got plenty of monster action in it, and you've got some really good actors in it that give some, nice likability enough, even if they're not the best written.
Yep.
But I think Kong Skull Island, the characters were lightly written, but there was something about them that was actually pretty interesting to a point. King of the Monsters, some people are going to claim is the worst film. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not perfect, but it
No.
did deliver in terms of spectacle and entertainment
Yep.
when needed.
When needed, definitely, especially with Ghidorah, King Ghidorah, and Godzilla.
Oh yeah, definitely. This one, I would say, I'm gonna put the New Empire below Godzilla versus Kong.
But it's definitely like second at least, basically.
I'm trying to figure out if I liked King of the Monsters more than the New Empire. I may have liked King of the Monsters a little more than the New Empire. I'm not saying the New Empire is bad.
No, for me, I wouldn't say King of the Monsters is bad either. I kind of liked it a little bit as well, but I would kind of rank, Godzilla versus Kong probably one, but I would put New Empire two, basically, because both of them are now the setup point basically to expanding further into the MonsterVerse, basically. And also potentially kind of set up this new sort of MonsterVerse where it's now have not just maybe not the Showa type of vibe, which is just a lot of comedy. This is going to be a lot more, I'm going to say, anime vibe, where it's you're going to have some funny moments here and there, but there are also going to be some serious moments here and there as well that they lacked in the Showa era.
Well, yeah, the Showa era it started out serious with the original film, but as it went along, they started getting more sillier and funnier, more family friendly.
Yeah, where I think this one, they're going to fix that, where it's alright, they're going to get some silliness, but it's also going to be serious. Kind of again, that anime, that anime vibe, where it's alright, there's still going to be some serious moments because it's alright, there's going to be another threat coming in or stuff like that. But they're going to have some comedy moments or some funny moments because it's going to be alright, Godzilla, or Kong, I need your help, or Godzilla,
Yeah.
we need some help up here. Down here.
Yeah, they could go down that route. But I'm thinking if they do what the Heisei era did, which was more serious and darker fares.
Yeah.
When the Heisei era started, they wanted to bring Godzilla back to darker, more serious roots, which they did. They still had fun, but the Heisei era is not as silly as the Showa era was, based on what I remember. Then the third era, the Millennium era, that was more delivering on the entertaining stuff, and it wasn't nearly as silly, but it did have its cheesiness to it.
Yeah.
So whatever direction they decide to take the franchise in, I mean, there's possibilities.
Yeah.
I just want to see them bring Destroya into this universe because they've set him up with the Oxygen Destroyer. He needs to show up at some point.
Yep.
I've seen concept fan art of what Biollante could look in this universe. Biollante, however you say it. I've seen concept art. It looks really cool. I'd like to see that.
Yep.
Because I don't think a lot of people know about that character. So if you bring the character back, that would be really, really cool.
What about Mecha Ghidorah? Because they kind of brought that somewhat up with the idea of, even though Ghidorah was killed in the King of the Monster, but they had some parts of him connecting to Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, they kind of hinted at a Mecha King Ghidorah at the end of King of the Monsters, but then it was they just used the skull, the power of Mecha Godzilla, which they transferred the consciousness of Ghidorah into that robotic body.
Yeah, but you can still kind of get the idea of Mecha Ghidorah.
I mean, if they do a Mecha Ghidorah, I don't know if they can do a Mecha Ghidorah now, because the skull was destroyed.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything about Ghidorah is done. They pretty much killed him off.
Yeah.
Unless they come up with some fantastical way to bring him back.
Yeah.
Which they could do, and maybe they'll have him team up with Gigan and other alien monsters.
Yeah.
Although if they bring in a remake of Orga, that would be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
Just saying, there's tons of possibilities they could take this franchise in, but it's just a matter of time before people get tired and want some rejuvenation, moving away from the silly stuff, maybe get more serious.
Yeah.
Whatever they decide to do, I don't know what they're going to do, but there are some interesting possibilities where they could go.
Or, kind of like how they did with Shimosa, they could bring in their version of a new monster, but kind of take it from other mythos into the MonsterVerse.
They could do that, because, I mean, creating original monsters, if you don't have the rights to the Toho monsters, that is the way to go.
Yeah.
And there are other titans around, we just need to see what those other titans are.
Yeah, could you see kind of a Fenrir, kind of from Norse mythology, that giant fiery wolf?
Hang on a sec.
So
You're talking Fenrir?
Fenrir from Norse mythology, that fiery wolf basically.
Oh, a giant wolf?
Yeah, a giant fiery wolf basically.
I mean, they could do that, because that could be a little silly.
But in another serious tone, because it's a bird, wolf, crawling, walking around burning anything to it.
Wait, yeah, it's based in Norse mythology, but there's a lot more to it than just the myths.
Yeah.
They could go down that route if they wanted to.
I mean, because technically, even though Tiamat was a monster-verse origin, but they could use, because Tiamat was technically a Mesopotamian as well mythos, you could bring in other mythos, kind of like a Fenrir from Norse.
They could do that, because I know...
Or Quetzalcoatl, or...
Quetzalcoatl?
Quetzalcoatl, or from the Aztec.
Quetzalcoatl, yeah.
Quetzalcoatl, or the other one. That's like the wind serpent.
I don't know what the other one is, but I remember there was one Godzilla cartoon that did have Quetzalcoatl as an actual beast.
Yeah.
And that was actually the animated sequel to the 1998 remake.
Mm-hmm.
They had that version fight something called Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
It was basically a giant bird monster.
Yeah.
Which was the Rodan of that universe.
Yeah.
And of course it birthed little Quetzalcoatl's that actually used the same sound effects as the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park.
Yeah. But something kind of like that, where it's like, it's still your idea, like, or original idea, but you're just grabbing other mythos giant creatures and kind of like blending it into your own universe, basically.
They could do that if they wanted to. And maybe they could have like some kind of fear factor to it. Like they could make them scary if they wanted to.
Yeah. Where it's like, again, with Fenrir, you could make it like a fiery wolf, basically.
You could do that. I do know with some of the Titans that have been established in this universe, some of them are based off of cryptids.
Yeah.
Like there's one Titan in this universe called Mokila Mbembe, or however you say it.
Yeah.
It's based off of a cryptid that's supposedly there's a dinosaur in Africa that's still alive.
Mm.
Actual cryptid, but I think no one's found conclusive evidence of that because, stuff like that. But they could do that. They could introduce the Loch Ness Monster.
Or Kraken. That's the OG.
Yeah, they could do that. Because, I remember one of the Godzilla cartoons, they actually had a Loch Ness Monster in there.
Yeah, Loch Ness Monster. I would imagine Kraken, just because,
He's
the OG.
They could introduce a Kraken. They could introduce the Mongolian Death Worm if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Just don't make it look like the worms from Dune and we'll be okay.
Or how about Jormungandr?
Jormungandr?
The world serpent from Norse mythology. Think of it as like a giant snake, basically, that roams around the hollow earth.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
They could do that, because I think they mentioned, possibly taking some cryptids and making them titans in this.
Yeah.
Imagine if they brought... There's another cryptid I know, the Baranger. If they bring the Baranger into this universe.
Yeah.
Which is some kind of dinosaur that's supposedly still alive.
Oh, yeah.
And there's, stuff they could do.
I know there's technically, the giant mammoth. I forgot his name.
Giant mammoth. Oh, Behemoth?
Behemoth, yeah.
Yeah, and King of the Monsters. I want to see that guy again.
Yeah, the Behemoth, yeah.
Because maybe that could make you make that beast an ally of Godzilla.
Yeah.
Because not all these kaiju are enemies of Godzilla. He does have some allies in the original movies.
Yeah.
So they could very much go down that route if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But I will say this, at least if you're going to end this franchise, end it with a remake of Final Wars or Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah.
Or maybe a remake of Godzilla vs. Destroya.
Yeah.
Where Destroya is basically going around killing all the Titans. And then Godzilla has to make one final stand and then he dies at the end.
Yeah.
They could do that if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But again, I think they have to get the rights from Toho to use Destroya.
Yeah.
Because you can't use them without getting the rights.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think we mentioned all we had to say about this movie.
Yeah.
And to the people who have seen it, you probably had a good time with it.
Yep.
This made money. There's probably going to be another movie at some point or another.
Yeah.
Because they definitely want to continue this franchise. But however they continue it, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they'll do a Final Wars remake or a remake of something else. Or, again, bring the cryptids in. Whatever they decide to do, there's possibilities.
Yeah.
And before we close this off, there were a couple trailers I did want to talk about.
Yep.
The first one I wanted to talk about was Quiet Place Day One.
Oh, yeah. That's like the prequel to the two Quiet Place movies.
Yeah, before we get the eventual third film, which I believe is due next year.
Is the supposed, third, part 3, is that supposed to be, the ending, per se, of, the whole story?
John Krasinski said he wanted it to basically be the trilogy capper.
The trilogy capper. So they'll find a way to either rid the monsters probably for good or
Well,
have a bad ending.
At the end of the second film, they basically now can spread the word out on how to defeat the monsters.
Yeah.
And so with day one, it's basically going to reveal how the aliens came to Earth and started basically wiping out the human race.
Which is because since they were all kind of go off of sound, everyone's in a panic, so that's going to be an easy picking. And also with jets making sounds or any sort of militaristic, because they obviously with giant creatures falling from the sky and attacking, you're going to use military stuff, and them making sounds, they'll jump on it and rip it to shreds.
Oh, definitely. And we see, like, New York City, I believe it is, the first city that gets attacked by these aliens.
Why does it always seem like New York is whenever there's like a giant, like world-ending, so to speak, type of collateral event happen? It's like,
always either Los Angeles or New York.
Yeah,
Because those are the most well-known cities for the most part.
at least globally for the aspect. Yeah. I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh, something I do like about the new Godzilla Kong films, they destroy cities, or at least wreck cities that are not New York or Los Angeles. Because people got tired of seeing Los Angeles and New York get ripped apart.
Yeah, or at least some other major cities too. Like they got Rome, they got Rio.
They got Boston and King of the Monsters.
Yep, Boston. Yep.
San Francisco in the first movie.
Yep.
And then they went to Hong Kong.
Yep. Hong Kong and the Godzilla of Kong versus Kong.
Yeah. But yeah, people got tired of seeing New York and Los Angeles destroyed in films. And it's nice that these new movies, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Quiet Place Day One, I probably will see that. Because I just want to see how the aliens came to Earth and started wrecking everybody.
Yeah, which since it's since there's two other films in terms of timeline after that, you're probably going to see the victor goes to the monster basically.
Yeah, you see the monsters win, and now the humans have to be quiet and live in like quiet isolation, otherwise they get hunted.
Yeah.
And then there was one shot in that trailer where we see the military use their jets and they destroy a suspension bridge.
Yeah, but I would imagine at some point they're gonna get like ripped to shred. Some of them will either jump up or do they have wings or something like that?
They don't have wings; they jump.
All right, so they'll have to time their jump to rip their planes apart, basically.
Oh yeah.
Either that, or they'll have to follow them and wait till they land and then rip it to shreds.
Definitely. And actually, I'm thinking this now with Day One. I think the whole movie, it's gonna be like the opening. It's gonna be like did you ever see the Will Smith version of I Am Legend?
I did not. I've seen trailers for it, maybe some clips of it. I also did see a little bit of Cloverfield, if you remember that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that one, because that was another one where big giant thing crashes into New York, hits the Statue of Liberty, actually, and a lot of little smaller creatures comes out of nowhere.
The parasites.
The parasites. And then eventually the giant monster comes in too.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get Cloverfield vibes from the Day One trailer. I was getting more I Am Legend vibes. Because when we see the suspension bridge get destroyed, there's a moment in the Will Smith version of I Am Legend where the military, they fire missiles at the Brooklyn Bridge and it collapses.
Yep.
Then you see the monsters, they're running towards everybody.
Yep.
It was kind of like that, and I think there might be a little bit of I Am Legend vibes out of that.
Well, I think I Am Legend and Cloverfield kind of had like that similar sort of speed. Something crashes through like a major city.
Well, they're two completely different things, actually. I Am Legend is like the proto-zombie story before zombie stuff became really popular.
Well, yeah, or at least kind of like...
The book came first, and then all our mainstream zombie movies came after that.
Yeah, okay, the book. But although the zombies kind of started with, was it The Night of the Living Dead?
Yeah, George A. Romero made them big with Night of the Living Dead.
Yep. Which led to some of the other slower zombie movie, and then
they got to the fast-paced stuff of the 2000s.
Yep, which I think really the fast-paced one, the breaking out of the fast-paced was that 28 days and then the 28 weeks later.
Yeah, those were the big two, and actually third movie's on the way 28 years later.
Yep, that one as well. But I just remember, even though actually the quotation, I actually looked this up a little bit, that they're actually called infected. They're not actually zombies, even though they act like it, but they're not really zombies.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and I mean, they're just basically fast-moving zombies. That's what people call them.
They are, because they act like zombies, but they're called infected because they're still technically humans. They are just filled with primal rage, basically.
Yeah, and they call it the rage virus.
Yep.
So everyone went on fast-moving zombies because that was like the first film to do it.
The films that do that sort of like that fast zombie thing, basically, because technically speaking, yeah, even though they're technically alive, because the idea was, well, if you leave them isolated for however long human needs to survive off of nutrition, whether that be water or food, they will eventually die out and rot, and then the infection will just die with it.
Pretty much. I know George A. Romero was not a fan of fast-moving zombies, was very critical about it.
Yeah. By the way, though, because of the 28 days later and the 28-week, that trilogy, now to be trilogy, that inspired a lot of the fast-moving zombies.
Yeah, like the Dawn of the Dead remake did fast-moving zombies.
And then, of course, I Am Legend
did the fast-moving zombie-ish thing, although in the original book they weren't really zombies, they were more vampiric. They were more vampires.
They were, so to speak, because
they can't go in the sun, otherwise they burn up.
Yeah.
And then of course a vampire bites another and it gets turned into a vampire.
Yep. Same thing with I Am Legend. Something gets bit, it will turn demonic or monstrous, because that's why Will had to kill the dog.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you had to kill the dog because the dog got bit. That was actually the saddest scene for most people in the movie.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, with Quiet Place Day 1, it'll be interesting to see because there was a lot of really cool visuals in that trailer.
Yeah. But my idea was with the two kind of thing, even though they are one's a zombie movie, one's a monster sort of thing, the idea is something crash onto a major city, and then whatever monsters plague, whether that be zombies or a monster, comes out and starts wrecking the entire planet, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty much how they're going to play the whole thing out.
With The Quiet Place Day 1, which is just something crash and starts, fluttering everywhere.
Yeah, but I think, it'll be worth a watch because I have, seen the other two films. I did like them for what they were, although when I did apply logic to the first film, it kind of fell apart for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, with this new one, it'll basically be more of what made those two films pretty good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then when the eventual third trilogy capper comes around, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, because the idea, like you said, off of the second one, where they figure out how to combat, which I believe if you're going to use sound, you're kind of amplifying the sound, which is going to be like...
Well, what they do is they put a hearing aid up to this speaker, and it creates a frequency that disorientates the monsters, and then they go, and then it exposes their soft part, and that's how they kill them.
Oh yeah, because obviously, if they go off of sound, but if you use too much of that sound, you're gonna have some kind of go.
Yeah, it disorientates them, and they can't handle it too much.
Yeah, which, like you said, it opens up, so you're just like.
Yep, that's pretty much what they're gonna do when the third one comes out.
Yep.
And then the other trailers were stuff we had seen before, like Fall Guy and Deadpool 3. So nothing to report there.
But it's the one franchise that you haven't experienced yet, but I have, which is why I was naming off some of the characters that I kind of view as those guys.
That was Borderlands. I got to see the Borderlands trailer in front of this.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, there's Roland, there's Lilith, there's Claptrap, there's Tiny Tina, and then you're just kind of like, huh.
Well, I don't really have a lot of familiarity with Borderlands. I know some of the images associated with it.
Yep.
But it is a series that I have on the PS4 and do actually want to see before this comes out.
Yeah, because I have played Borderlands 2, Borderlands pre-sequel, Borderlands 3, Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I've not played 1, but I did hear about it and watch some clips of it. But
I think one's on major systems because they ported the Game of the Year edition over.
Yep. Yeah, they ported the first Borderland Game of the Year, I believe, over. Yeah, but they still have the gold edition or something like that, where you have 2 and pre-sequel, and then there's like I said, there's Borderlands 3, Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is just basically Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. So here's what I wanted to say about the Borderlands film.
Yep.
It looks like it has a budget. Like, it looks like an actual film.
Yep.
Because you know how in the past there's been video game movies that looked really cheap, or they didn't know how to use their budgets very well?
True, but I think since they fixed up Sonic with the trailer into this one, video games movie has been getting a lot better.
I mean, that could be the case. I would have to watch the Sonic films myself to determine that.
So that's why the Sonic franchise has been trending upwards. You know, with Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and now there's a Knuckle TV series on Paramount.
And there's a Sonic 3 on the way.
Yep, with Keanu Reeves as Shadow.
Weren't they going to cast Hayden Christensen as Shadow at one point?
There was a rumor about that. It wasn't confirmed, but it was rumored. But now it is confirmed to be Keanu Reeves.
Another one we can add to his list.
And Knuckles is
Idris Elba?
Yep, him. So it's kind of like you're kind of getting all these kind of like characters that kind of like fit the personality of the Sonic characters into Sonic, per se.
All right, it's definitely something on my watch list. But yeah, with the Borderlands film, I plan on at least playing the games to get an idea of the world
And
it's all about.
yeah, but since you haven't played the games, but you have seen a particular movie that I kind of compare to a little bit, being the Fast and Furious franchise.
Fast and Furious?
Not Fast and Furious.
Mad Max?
Mad Max. Yep, that's the one.
I wasn't getting Mad Max vibes from the trailer. I was getting more like cartoon comedy vibes from the Borderlands trailer.
It is cartoon comedy. It is definitely a lot of comedy, but it is more Mad Max just because it's a wasteland basically, and you have all these different factions and warlords and whatnot. Although really the main antagonist throughout most of the Borderlands, I would say one, well, not really one, it's mainly two pre-sequels to a degree. It kind of led up to two. The famous villain being Handsome Jack, which I think a guy kind of playing as that. I think the one kind of looked a little dress coat thing with flucking around like that. I think that's supposed to be Handsome Jack. Which he is a really good villain. He is a popular villain in the Borderlands series. You will see why when you venture into that Borderlands.
Definitely, because I'm looking at this trailer and I'm like, okay, this looks like it has a budget. Like the CG on Claptrap, who's voiced by Jack Black, it actually looks pretty good.
Yep.
And I think after hearing Jack Black as this little robot and being all funny, this makes sense. This makes sense for Jack Black.
Yep.
Because when Jack Black was Bowser, that was something I was not quite on board with. Here it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and Claptrap is also supposedly funny as well in the Borderlands series. He is supposed to be kind of like this sarcastic, a little bit, but he's funny to say the least in Borderlands. Roland is supposed to be kind of like this serious, but he's also kind of but he's supposed to, he's supposed to act all tough and stuff like that too. But he's also So Kevin Hart was an interesting choice a little bit, but understandably so a little bit. Yeah,
Kevin Hart, I mean, he has gotten a lot of attention over the years.
Yep.
But here, it kind of feels restrained, almost. Like he's not being his typical self in this one. At least that's what I got from the trailer.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, so the way he kind of acted in the trailer fits a little bit what Roland is.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm going to have to play the games to get an idea before I see this thing, and actually I may need to do that soon because this film is coming up.
Yeah.
But with this movie, I mean, the trailer actually wasn't that bad. And at least, this movie looks like it has a budget compared to the stylish video game films that either look really cheap or they wasted the budget and it looks fake. Here, I think this is replicating the visual style of the games, but I would need to sort of get an idea, did it replicate it well?
Yeah.
And the one thing I'm kind of hoping for is they don't do something gimmicky with this.
My buddy, who is a big fan of the Borderlands series, he's excited for the movie to come out.
And the other question we have to ask with this film is, will it break the video game film curse?
You mean completely?
Yeah, will this be the first major one to break the curse completely?
I would have thought more of the Sonic franchise that would start to break it, and then, start cracked it or breaked it, which led to a lot of good ones like the Mario movie and whatnot.
I mean, the Mario movie was okay for me.
I thought it was a solid one, and I think everyone kind of went on the notion of like if that was a solid film.
I mean, yeah, it looks like how Mario should look,
Yeah.
but the way it was executed, it's not really something I would have done if I was in charge.
Yeah, cause
I would have done like something like you could have humor in it, but have it have its like serious fantasy stuff.
yeah. Well, I would kind of save a little bit of the serious fantasy stuff to something like Legend of Zelda.
Well, yeah, you could do that too, but with Mario, it's like there is some kind of serious fantasy you could do with it, just still make it lighthearted and funny.
Yep.
And maybe give it kind of this old school tone feel,
Yeah.
kind of like some early animated movies that I've seen. I don't know. That's how I would have done it, but I've never seen the Sonic films. I probably need to see those.
Yeah.
I just never really played any of the Sonic games growing up, so I just don't have that connection to where I don't know how I would think about them.
I played some. I did play Sonic and the Black Knight.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing you play that.
Yep, I played that one. I did play a little bit of that new Sonic game on the Xbox, Frontier. Did play a little bit of that.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like with Sonic, he started in the Genesis era, and I didn't exist during the Genesis era. I just don't have that upbringing that other fans have.
Yeah.
And it's like, I go into the Sonic movie, I'm not really a Sonic fan. How would I feel about the movies?
I also at one point watch Sonic X.
That would be the animated thing?
That was the animated thing, yep.
I think I saw tidbits of that, but not the actual show.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I'm trying to get at with Borderlands breaking the gaming curse entirely is like, there's just been so many bad video game adaptations throughout the years, and so many of them were like complete failures with fans and critics alike.
Yeah.
And it's like, for years we have just been begging for an adaptation that, respected the source material, adapted it faithfully, and, is the first movie that actually feels like there was genuine effort put into it.
Yeah. I kind of feel like Borderlands, if there is to like quote unquote officially break it, it would probably be Borderlands because again, you get the people be like, oh, Mad Max a little bit. We can do something like that.
Basically Mad Max, but with more humor.
Yep, with more humor and a lot more action.
Well, Mad Max had a ton of action.
Well, they did have action, a ton of action, but it's like you got a lot more comedy with it as well, and space a little bit, to a degree, a lot more space action.
Mm. Well, I think, with the Borderlands film, we'll see, but I do need to play the games to get an idea of what's going on.
Because it's like Mad Max did get a lot of action, don't get me wrong, but then it had space action.
Space action, I think, was that in the pre-sequel? Because I remember seeing something like that on the cover.
Pre-sequel for
Borderlands.
Yep, there's pre-sequel, there's, well again, like I said, there's Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, Borderlands pre-sequel, which was the third game before Borderlands 3, and then after Borderlands 3, then there was Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
I'm just saying, when it comes to this adaptation, it's like, it looks like they're replicating the style from what I can tell, but I just need to play the game to like understand what the story behind it is. Are they going to faithfully adapt that story? Are they going to take the best elements and make their own? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, because they still have, again, Roland, Lilith, Tiny Tina. I'm assuming it's probably going to be somewhere around Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, pre-sequel, that type of area. That general area.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to get at also with breaking the video game movie curse is there are some video games that if they were to adapt them, they could make really great adaptations if you had the right filmmaker behind the camera. Like Guillermo del Toro has stated that Shadow of the Colossus and Ico are masterpieces.
Oh, yeah, I know, for the early PlayStation 2 era.
Yeah, and I think Shadow of the Colossus would be one of the easier ones to adapt, and you would need someone who's like he really loves the game so much he can replicate it on screen. Yeah. In that case, Del Toro could do it.
Yeah.
But obviously he won't. And Sony's talked about a Shadow of the Colossus adaptation for years.
Yeah.
And I know when I say it's the easiest one to adapt because it's not really a dialogue-heavy story. There's a lot of like minimalism to it. and there's a lot of visual spectacle to it.
What made Shadow of the Colossus great, though, even though I never played it, but I saw a lot of gameplay, if not the entirety of it, it's a guy who's trying to revive his beloved by means of doing this whole thing for an entity, basically, even though he didn't realize it's a bad entity. But he's kind of traveled to different areas of the territory, eliminating these colossal titans.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, with Shadow of the Colossus is, like, there's a lot of different interpretations and ambiguity to it. Like, there's a lot of stuff people still speculate about to this day. And I don't know, if someone really loves the source material like Del Toro does, I could see that one being one truly great adaptation.
True, I would kind of view maybe the Shadow of the Colossus maybe like a TV series, because it could be really hard to put all the titans that he had to go through into one movie.
Well, if they make it a 3-hour film, it could work.
Maybe, but yeah, you're asking people to sit there for a long time.
Yeah, I just can't see it working as a TV series. I don't think I can see it working that way. Another gaming franchise they could adapt would be the God of War franchise.
That one could work.
Because the original trilogy is like one of the biggest trilogies that ever came out for the PlayStation.
Yep.
And I feel like, again, you could adapt it like the way it is. You could make maybe, I don't know what type of changes you can make, but if you adapt God of War faithfully, it would be awesome to watch.
Yep.
And at least give it a budget where it looks about as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah. Well, budget is good, but you would have to, God of War, it's kind of like that's, again, you're talking about a guy who's getting vengeance upon the gods, so.
It's still really fascinating, like, the characterization and the story aspects to it.
Yeah.
And there's people that, still talk about it to this day. I feel like, again, if you were to adapt it faithfully...
If only you had Vin Diesel in his younger age.
I don't know if I want to see Vin Diesel as Kratos. I know people suggested that, but I don't want to see that.
Vengeance, yeah.
You would have to get someone who can, I wouldn't say emulate Terrence C. Carson's performance as Kratos, but someone who can, get up there, just don't emulate it. Or make it their own to where I'm like, this is a pretty good performance that makes it its own, doesn't try to emulate Terrence C. Carson. Yeah. And, there's also other gaming properties that are protected by their creators that may never get an adaptation.
I could see... There's definitely also, since Nintendo's kind of launch its own sort of thing starting with Super Mario, again, Legend of Zelda, you got Kirby, you got Star Fox, you got Metroid.
Nintendo could make a cinematic universe, but I haven't heard any big announcement for that yet.
Was it? Oh yeah, Captain Falcon or F-Zero or something like that. The racing.
Whatever they decide to do with that, but it's just I do want to see the Borderlands film when I play the game.
Yeah.
It's just I feel like with all the bad adaptations we've had over the years, we really need something to break the curse completely. And I'm talking like a video game film that gets really high ratings across the board. And it replicates what made the game special for so many people. And it basically feels like an actual legitimate film and not some cheap cash-in or a vanity project or something like that. There's just a lot of expectations going into it,
Yeah.
But I will say this about the Borderlands film. The last thing I'll say, we better hope that Randy Pitchford had no involvement in it. Because Randy Pitchford, he's done some stuff that made people mad. For example, Duke Nukem Forever, when Gearbox acquired that from 3D Realms, Randy Pitchford was pretty much blamed along with other people for the way that turned out. And then Randy Pitchford famously lied about Aliens Colonial Marines. And we all know the controversies surrounding that.
Oh yeah.
So it's you better hope Mr. Pitchford had no involvement with the film. Otherwise, something might go wrong.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like whenever Todd Howard advertises something for Bethesda, you know he's lying.
Oh yeah.
So it's but I did see the Gearbox logo in the trailer, so I don't know how much involvement they had with the movie. Because when a studio gets involved with a film adaptation, it could either be good, it could be bad, or somewhere in the middle.
Oh yeah.
And for one company I can think of, it wasn't quite the success they were hoping for, and they actually had to cancel another announced film because of that. See, when Insomniac did the Ratchet and Clank film, they had involvement in it. It was not a runaway hit, and the Sly Cooper movie had to be canceled completely. And I remember seeing the trailer for the Sly Cooper film, but then it got canceled completely.
Yeesh.
And it's like there's no word.
Yeah.
So again, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had a good time with this film that we watched.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, we've kind of rambled on whatever we had to ramble on.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure.
Like we usually do. But yeah, I mean, this movie, it was what it was. It knows exactly what it wants to be.
Yep.
It's not ashamed of it, and you just are supposed to have fun with it.
Yep.
That's all there is to it.
Yep.
And whatever they decide to do next, only time will tell.
Yep.
All right, so let me think. I know Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is coming up.
Yeah, and we also mentioned too about Star Wars: The Phantom Menace being re-released in the theaters.
Oh yeah, that's getting a 25th anniversary re-release, and I'm checking our theaters to see if there's availability to it.
Yeah.
Just one problem though, a lot of the major theaters, I think the servers overloaded for it.
Yeah.
Because ticket sales went crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to be in the cinema though, but hopefully if it comes to our local theater, I think we could do a look back on that one.
Yeah.
Like a sort of retrospective look back on the Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah, definitely for sure.
Because there is some stuff I could mention about that.
Yeah, and I have a good amount of things to say in terms of, especially in the retrospective.
Oh, definitely. Oh, speaking of Star Wars, Rebel Moon Part 2 came out. But it's getting slammed across the board.
Yeah, something tells me that they, comparison to like how Doom Part 2, they were successful in, going from the setting up Part 1, having the whole thing setting up, and then Part 2 being this epic spectacular film. Rebel Moon Part 2 went from an okayish, not the greatest start in terms of setting it up, to now it continued to fell.
Yeah,
seemed like that way.
What people said in their reviews is it's basically set up for 4 more films because Zack Snyder said he wants this to be 6 movies long.
See, you gotta hit it strong with Part 2 because otherwise people won't stay around for much longer.
I mean, if Zack Snyder's getting slammed and he might not get his 6-film plan, this is exactly what happened with his DC films.
Yeah.
Like, people didn't like him that much, and they never made it past Justice League.
No, because I think I think what may be happening, he's trying too hard in trying to set up stuff where it's like, if you just hit really well on a storyline with 2 parts, you'll eventually get to some of these other parts.
Yep, and from what I've heard, people are not enjoying it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what happened with DC. What do you guys expect with this?
Yeah, DC, they did not do well, at least in their first live adaptations of the DC universe.
Yep, it's only a matter of time to see where James Gunn goes with his rebooted universe.
Yep.
But, I mean, yeah, Snyder said, like, after his Justice League trilogy, he was going to do a Flashpoint adaptation that would have been... I mean, it would have come with its own problems, but I would have taken it over what we ended up getting. Because you can refer to the Flash video and how that went for us.
Yep.
But yeah, Zack Snyder said had he done Flashpoint, it could have, been a little closer, maybe, to the comic, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, we'll see. Or who would have known for that one?
Yeah, but if the Phantom Menace, like, it comes around to our local theater, and I'll keep you up to date on that.
Yep.
We might make a look back video on that.
Yep.
My only hope though is that they re-release at least episodes 2 to 6 in the theater, because I will not go back for the sequels.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 7, 8, 9. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've never seen 3 in theaters. Man.
Yeah, 3 was a big one when it came out.
Yeah.
And 2 was my first one in the theater, actually.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, that's for sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's just so many re-releases going on now. There's even re-releases of the Spider-Man movies
Definitely.
happening right now.
Yeah.
Because it's like Sony's like, well, people like Spider-Man. We might as well re-release our biggest cash cow.
And I did see a re-release in Shrek 2.
Oh yeah, there was a re-release of the first Shrek. I think it was a couple years ago or something like that. And now they're getting Shrek 2 out because Shrek 2's like 20 this year.
Yeah, something like that. And also, I mean, technically the Puss in Boots series too kind of like blossomed because of Shrek 2.
Oh yeah, and Puss in Boots 2 hinted at a possible Shrek 5, which we'll see if that ever happens.
Well, it was hinted at the end of the Puss in Boots second film.
Yes. The question is like, how much of the cast can they get back?
Yeah.
Because Mike Myers is not popular like he once was, and Eddie Murphy is not as popular as he once was, and Cameron Diaz is basically retired at this point.
Yeah.
So it's like, are they going to bring him back, and what's the fifth movie going to be about?
Yeah.
I don't know. But there will be a lot of Shrek people that could line up for that.
Yeah.
I'll be one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a ton of re-releases going on. Like, we also saw a poster for an Alien re-release.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because that turns 45 this year, but there's a new Alien film out this year.
Yep.
Alien Romulus, which is set between the first and the second films.
Yep.
You know, someone asked me if that's going to be like Alien Isolation almost. And I'm like, maybe. I'm not so sure.
That's a tough one right there.
Yeah, because when I played Alien Isolation, that was scarier than the actual film. Because being hunted by a xenomorph with unpredictable AI.
Speaking of video game films, would there ever be... I think if let's say the video game does continue to grow and blossom, will there ever be a Final Fantasy film?
There already exist Final Fantasy films. And
I'm talking like bigger budget. I know there has been some Final Fantasy film. I know Advent Children, there's a movie. Then there's The King Glaive for Final Fantasy 15. But I'm talking a little bit more of like the live action, versions of things.
Will that ever happen? I think you gotta get Square Enix's permission for that one.
Yeah. Because I'm talking like, not just like maybe it could be animated as well. I'm not saying that, can't be that. But I know those movies, the Final Fantasy movies, that was kind of like Square Enix's ideas. Their budgeting and stuff like that, because they're supposed to be like this plot, either an epilogue to a game or like a little plot line between the game itself, basically.
I think I remember hearing Square Enix wanted to start a cinematic universe of their properties following the 2018 Tomb Raider. But there's been no development on that.
Yeah.
So I have no idea if Square Enix will let that happen.
Yeah, because that would be like a massive budget where it's like, you could see a lot of the Final Fantasy characters into like a bigger budget, basically. Wherever they be the Final Fantasy 7, like movie, basically. Like, not like Advent Children where it was like the epilogue. Or Kingsglaive, which is in between 15. We're talking like an actual like live adaptation or an animated version of the game themselves.
I just don't know if I can see that happening. Again, you'd have to get the devs' permission on that one, or publishers' permission.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I can see that happening.
And like either 7, or we can go back to 6, or we can go back to 1, 13, 15, whatever popular like storylines basically. There's a lot of people that like certain storylines too, or certain stories from whatever games there is, because there's different stories for all different games.
Yeah, that is the case. The other thing too is like, would they make it for hardcore fans? Would they try to bring in some new people?
Yeah.
Because the Warcraft film was made for hardcore fans, and it was difficult for anyone who wasn't initiated to get in.
Yeah.
Me especially.
Yep, and then I know, in terms of live action, I know Resident Evil tried that with the...
Oh yeah, Paul W.S. Anderson and Mila Jovovich's 6-film saga.
Yep, that didn't quite work out really because they kind of went away from it. Monster Hunter with the same cast, with the same two people.
Same director and Mila Jovovich.
Yep, they tried to do that with Monster Hunter. It was okay. Not really a lot of Monster Hunter fans really liked it, really. Netflix did a animated version of that, which was a lot better.
Oh yeah, I know Netflix has a Tomb Raider animated series that's coming up.
Yep.
And there's other Castlevania stuff they're working on. I think there was a Devil May Cry animated show they're doing.
I think I heard something about that too. At some point. Castlevania did a really good job, though. That was one of the other video game adaptation that did a tremendous job. Not a movie, but in season 1 through 4, really good job. They did do they went to the Nocturne one, which is technically Victor.
Oh yeah, you told me all about that, and that's something I have to get to at some point.
Yep, I did watch the Nocturne Richter, which they're supposed to be. I mean, they were setting up for season 2, and I have yet to look back on it if it's going to be coming out shortly or if it's already been. I have not heard anything in terms of the season 2 yet. It's set up though for season 2.
I do actually. In terms of animated video game adaptations, there is an Ark, the animated series that just hit Paramount.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get around to that, but that's kind of something. It does have a high-profile cast in it.
Yeah. Halo, I know with Paramount Plus, speaking of which, first season was a disaster, and I think second season did not do too well either. But Fallout has been getting somewhat pretty good, rapport.
Oh yeah, I heard the Fallout series got some pretty good reviews.
Yeah.
And at least Todd Howard may have had no involvement in that.
Yep. Because I know my buddy who's been watching it, he liked it, or he's liking it. Or two of them that watched it, they liked it.
Well, actually, I think Fallout, it could work better as a TV series because it's an RPG, and you can spread that out over a television series story.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of a live-action Final Fantasy film, they'll do a television series instead.
Maybe. You could do that. Maybe multiple seasons. Each season goes to different stories. You could do it that way. I could see that.
That might be the better approach.
Season 1 being Final Fantasy 1 and so on and so forth. That'll be at least be 6, as far as I know, 16, maybe 14, depending if you really want to get into the two MMO games being Final Fantasy 11 and 14. Don't know if you want to do that one. But at least some of the games that are heavier to the story. I mean, 11 and 14 did have their own stories, but 1, 2, and all the other ones are a little bit more story driven, or just single player stuff. They probably do that one. But if they want to do some of the ones there, 11 and 14 storyline and just keep it in that realm, they could do that. That would make it 16 seasons worth.
Oh, there's that's what I'm saying. If it's that big, make it a TV series. Because it would work better in that format.
Yeah, because Final Fantasy had, again, there's 16 Final Fantasy games, besides some of the other sub-games, but in terms of main ones, it's 1 through 16 as far as I know. Don't know, I mean, they're probably going to make Final Fantasy 17 at some point.
They probably will. It makes a lot of money.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but they just got done with their 2 DLCs for Final Fantasy 16. And they also doing a crossover event in Final Fantasy 14, which I did too, by the way, after completing the base campaign.
Actually, since we mentioned Fallout, are they going to make an Elder Scrolls TV adaptation now?
I have not heard anything about Elder Scrolls.
Because they could do that, and imagine if they adapted Skyrim into a TV series.
Oh God!
And then they put in, we took an arrow to the knee.
That would be like a joke. That would be a funny joke, but they had to do it at least once or twice. You can't keep a running joke like that because that'll get too old quickly.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, there's again different possibilities. We just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to wrap this up because this has kind of been going on for a while. But we enjoyed what we saw.
Yep.
It was what it was. Just go in knowing that this is not something deep. This is just good monster action.
Yep.
And it'll give you exactly what you want if you're a huge kaiju fan.
Yep.
And I would say if you're really into Godzilla, you're going to like this.
Yep.
Even if he has minimal screen time, you're going to like it.
Godzilla, Kong, you'll like it.
Yeah, and I would probably say this to Legendary and all the filmmakers and Warner Brothers. Do a remake of Destroya. Maybe introduce Biollante and Space Godzilla. Try a remake of Final Wars. Whatever you come up with, I will check it out.
Warner Brothers have their own issues, though. Let's not forget about that. They've been doing a lot of budget cuts. Which is why they themselves ended Rooster Teeth.
Yeah, and they've been axing stuff from Max, which is not cool.
Yeah, and speaking of cutting Rooster Teeth, that got a lot of people upset.
I'm sure of it because I remember hearing that they were pretty big.
They were, but because they bought them and then eventually, they just died. Yeah, Rooster Teeth just died. Yeah, because now Blue versus Red, I think I heard they're supposed to have their final season. Ruby is in a desperation right now. It could, who knows if there's going to be a season 10 to finish it off. And I think Death Battle, under the name Rooster Teeth, is about to have one last Death Battle.
Screw Attack Death Battle?
Death Battle, yeah, because they still have the podcast, but under the name, the brand Rooster Teeth, they're bound to have a last Death Battle.
Well, whatever they do, they better go out with a bang.
Well, it sounds like, like the two guys, like the two animated characters, that's the last one. You know how, like, in season 1 of Epic Rap Battle, the ending of the season 1 was the guys, Peter and...
I don't think I ever saw that ending, but
Well, there's multiple seasons, but the ending of season 1 had the two main creators of Epic Rap Battle go clashing head to head.
Well, anyway, we gotta wrap this up, but whatever we decide to do next, we'll be there. Hopefully it's the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see.
See you around.